multiple instances has got to push to. No, that was a lot quicker than I expected. We're live, everybody. Welcome to the Q3 2023 earnings live coverage with some of the most handsome dudes you'll ever see in your life, especially that dude in the middle there with just, I don't even know how to describe it. We have Nick, Herbert, Hans, Yashu, and we have multiple other folks coming on as well as the stream goes live. We'll be talking about Tesla earnings. And yeah, if you are watching this on my channel, thank you so much for joining us. But I believe this is also going to Nick's and Herbert's as well. We're doing a multi-stream both on YouTube and on X. And I'm very excited to have everybody on. I'm just going to ask the question broadly and see who answers first. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew it.
I do want to know first and foremost, I want to know, Nick, tell us about why. Just why.
Why what, Yashu?
I don't know, something different about you today. I just can't tell.
I don't know. I feel alive.
Oh my God. The real scary face just showed up. Oh my God. That is terrible. What's that mask you have on, Matt? What is that? It's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Nice to see you, Farzad. It's been a while.
Yeah. I missed you.
I will say, Farzad,
not wasting 1 second.
Matt has 6 kids. Farzad, you have none. So
just wait. Just wait, bro. It's gonna be a sudden thing. Awesome. So okay, let's I don't even know what that means. I don't even question that. Just
what does that?
Run, Cindy.
All right.
Run.
Let's talk about Tesla. Shit. All right. So we got earnings coming up for the third quarter. This one, it feels like it's a little bit lowered expectations versus the other ones. It seems like the last few quarters, there's been like a diminishing level of excitement, it feels like, because of, some of the trends around gross margins, around earnings, around operational margin. FSD keeps being we're waiting for that to happen. Cybertruck news are few and far between. You got the CFO leaving. We got a new CFO stepping in. Who wants to take this first? How are you feeling about these earnings? What are your thoughts on what to expect? And then we'll take it from there. Maybe I should direct it to somebody. Herbert, you go first. What do you think?
So I would say that I think that it's built in. I think that no one's really expecting much for earnings. I don't think that it's going to be a total miss. And I also don't think it's going to be a beat. So I think it's basically going to be right on target to what everybody thinks the earnings per share is going to be, what revenue is going to be. Everything's going to be right on target. And I think everybody's looking for what they're going to say about, the future and the forecast of what's going to happen. I think that the announcement of the Cybertruck, we are all very excited about it. I'm not so sure that that's the thing that most other investors are really looking forward to it. I know we're very, very excited about it, but it just feels like, again, that's something that they've already announced, that it's supposed to happen, hasn't happened, and when they do, it's a confirmation. And so for me, it's really things like, what's going to happen with the bots, what's going to happen with FSD, they should report on energy. Those are the things. And I think the new CFO, he's got to come in and make a great impression. He's got to settle people down, feeling like he's got everything under hand. Those are the things I'm looking forward to.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with that. Actually, I guess you're right, because I get really excited with the Cybertruck and like, okay, this is time. Finally, we're going to get a date. I feel like we're probably going to get a date for the announcement or for the delivery event today. But I guess maybe, we're living in too much of a bubble where we think that matters more than it probably does. But regardless, I think in general, earnings are not going to be hot. It's not going to be like, wow, Tesla, did super great and record EPS or anything like that. So that's out of the bag. So I guess energy, like you say, is a big portion of it. But of course, like, I think the wild card for me also is some sort of FSD tangible update where it's like, okay, they said end of year, even as late as almost a month or two ago, end of the year, it's on track. If it's really on track, I'd love to hear some sort of report or timeline for actual launches of robotaxis, whether it's piloting in Las Vegas or piloting here, some sort of a roadmap of a plan, because then we can start to talk about operating margins starting to actually scope back up a little bit. It seems like with all the price cuts, and probably there'll be another one at some point throughout the year, it feels like at this point, it just seems like Tesla is churning and burning these cars out, but it's just a matter of when are we going to start to see some of that software margin pad up on EPS. So I think the report matters less, but the call is, again, I think what everyone is focused on. So
you mentioned energy. Let's ask our resident energy expert here, Matt. What are you expecting of energy here from Tesla?
Yeah, so I do think that there's going to be potentially a bit of surprise on the energy side. So this is something in my forecast that I spent some time kind of digging into, and it gets into a little bit of like accounting nerdery, which is not a word, but I'll kind of avoid the like the detailed explanation, except for the fact that Tesla's been really ramping not only the Lathrop production, but they've been ramping deployments. If you look at the last several quarters, Q1 in particular was a pretty steep ramp relative to where they had been before. But if you look at the revenue increase in Q1 and Q2 compared to the increase in deployments, it really hasn't materialized yet. And so I think that the reason for that is that there's a delay in the revenue recognition milestones for these megapack projects, these really large megapack projects. And so I'm expecting a pretty large kind of beat on revenue for energy, just because you're going to have not only Lathrop continuing to ramp, so your deployments I think are going to kick up again, and there's a chunk of the revenue recognition which is tied to just deployments. But then I think you're going to have some sort of pickup of this historical deferred revenue that'll be recognized in Q3. So putting it all together, I'm at around just over 500 million in gross margin on the energy side of the business this quarter. So that puts it at like a $2 billion run rate. So I think that's, it wouldn't surprise me if that ends up being a little bit too high, but I do think all signs are kind of pointing to energy really starting to ramp up. And if they're at like a $2 billion gross margin run rate, I think that might force analysts to go back a little bit and say, all right, maybe we need to take this side of the business a little more seriously.
How much percentage is that then? It's more than 6%?
What do you mean, growth or
contribution to profit?
Oh, when you do it that way, yeah, my quick math is not super.
Probably like 20%.
You know what? I'm like not sleeping these days, so
Matt,
yeah. If you look at it in total,
don't succumb to the bullying, Matt. Don't. Farzad pushes you around too much. Now Herbert's piling on. Stick up for yourself, Matt.
I like that.
12% of total gross margin is what I'm coming up with.
Okay.
What? Sorry. So as far as like the revenue
don't be
and
mean
the
to me anymore.
the revenue and the gross margin number are what again for energy for this quarter? You're expecting?
Yeah, so on the revenue side, I'm projecting a pretty steep increase to $2.1 billion in revenue, and then around a 21% gross margin, which brings it to $519 million.
Got it. So if I do so that's a 40% growth on revenue quarter over quarter versus Q2.
And to be clear, that this wouldn't be, like Lathrop just is picking up and, it's all related to that. It would really be just kind of I think if you look at last quarter in particular, revenue was actually down sequentially. And when deployments were, I believe deployments were actually up. And deployments were actually a little bit flat too. But it just doesn't make sense. Like if you take the revenue, that's a kind of implied if you back off like some reasonable estimate for solar as part of the energy revenue, and then you kind of divide what's left by the deployments, you get a $1 per kilowatt hour figure, which is way too low for the amount of energy that they're actually deploying. So like for Q1, when I did this, for example, I was getting storage revenue of $333 per kilowatt hour. I mean, that's way too low. I mean, the Megapack is selling for, at least at that time was selling for more like, $450, $500 per kilowatt hour. And then in Q2, the figure was $343 per kilowatt hour. So that just implies that there is a big chunk of the revenue which has not yet been recognized. And so at some point there needs to be a kind of catch up of those revenues. Otherwise, it's just that's just like mathematically that has to happen at some point.
Makes sense. Let's do Nico
you
and
understand
Hans.
That. Don't be silly.
How dare you? Nico and Hans, what are you guys thinking for this quarter? Mr. I
thinking
don't
that-
sleep.
I'm thinking that Ford might have a big issue right now. Looks like there's a recall of 100% of all Mach-E's built over the last 2 years. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah. I think
just saw
2020
that.
and 2021, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about it. I just read it. What do I think about this quarter? Is that your question?
Yes, sir.
I think it's going to be bad but good, if that makes any sense. I think everybody's expecting kind of a somewhat of a bad quarter. Hopefully, they're expecting it. I mean, they didn't expect the delivery numbers, which apparently was a shock for some reason. I think the biggest thing really is going to come down to the Cybertruck announcement. I'm in the camp that I think people are expecting it now, and if we don't get some type of guidance on that, then people are going to be Wall Street's going to be somewhat upset, because I think they kind of expect everything else right now. As long as there's no big negative surprise on margins, like even if it's a little worse than they're expecting, I think that'll be fine. But I think the biggest thing will be what Elon and team say. Are they saying that, they're hoping Cybertruck deliveries by the end of this year? That's not going to be the best tone to be setting. If they're saying, 4680 batteries are making progress, it's a slow ramp and all this stuff, I think it's going to come down to more of what they say and what they guide for the future and their tone that will set the stage for everything. And I think this is a chance for the new CFO to really, make his, claim, especially after Zach left. Like that. This is a big call for him. This is his first real introduction to the world. So I don't know. I don't expect much. I just think, honestly, I think it's all going to be about the future for once. And I'll leave it at this. I think this will be the first time where this call is going to be predominantly about AI.
Interesting. Hans, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, as far as, execution, I think that we'll see, yes, like the market pretty much knows how things have gone this quarter. We've already got deliveries. I think that analysts have probably a pretty good sense, like everyone has said, about what that's going to translate into for margins and revenue and all that stuff. So I think what I'm really looking for, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, and I don't care how the market is going to respond to that. What I want to see is, what are the long-term key drivers going to be? And we'll get a lot of that information on the call more so than in the earnings report. So what I'm really looking for and excited to hear more information about is, one of them is continued 4680 ramp. We saw the new milestone on cells produced out of Giga Texas, and that was huge. And I want to see, is that continuing? That really looks good for Cybertruck, and I really hope that we do see a Cybertruck event announced. Those are the things that I'm really excited for on the vehicle side. And then obviously we want to know more about Dojo. We want to know more about FSD. And I'm almost can guarantee that we're going to get some sort of an update on Optimus Bot, because they've been turning those out pretty regularly here recently. It seems like there's a lot of progress and it's moving quickly. And so they've been proud to share their Optimus progress, both in any event that they hold, but also in between events that they're holding. And so I expect to see something there today. And that's honestly probably the thing that I'm the most excited about of anything.
I want to ask a question, because I think if I think about it, there might be one thing that could cause the excitement in the stock to skyrocket, and that would be an update on if there's any licensing with the FSD. Last earnings call, he said that there's early discussions. If he comes out this time and he says that discussion has moved forward, that could be the one of the only catalysts, really. I'm telling you that I think that them announcing Cybertruck is, here's the delivery date. I don't think that's going to move the stock. It's expected. In fact, if they don't say anything, it's going to be the opposite. I know that energy, we talked about earlier, that's going to give a little bit of bump. I don't know if it's a big enough of a shock of something new that people weren't expecting. They said that they were going to already start, reporting it because it's going to be material by now anyways. They definitely should do another update on the bot and FSD, but again, those are more. It's more like a demo that would make that move. And so this is really the only partnership announcement that could move the stock and change the narrative quite quickly. I think they're going to talk about AI, of course, all this supercomputers, which they have been. But again, that also just doesn't seem to be, something that's going to move the stock until they actually show big changes there. What do you guys think?
Anybody have any thoughts there? FSD?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I agree. Like, I think if there was actually some sort of announcement, or at least kind of more meat on the bone of that FSD licensing announcement, I think that would be a pretty, about as big of a catalyst as we could possibly hope for. So whether that'll happen or not, I mean, I'm kind of skeptical. I think FSD probably needs to be a little bit more fully baked in the public builds before, you'd have someone like Jim Farley sticking his neck out there and say, yeah, we'll put this on Ford vehicles. But if that were to happen, I think that'd be a really nice catalyst, and probably would dwarf all the other, noise of this earnings report. So I agree with Herbert.
Do you guys think that let's say it was Ford or GM or any of the three that are going through the UAW strike, do you think this type of announcement could kind of blunt some of the negativity and then also help them remove any R&D spend they have with their own autonomy projects? I mean, we're seeing them trying to delay and push off EV projects because of cost structures, right? So maybe this would be kind of in line with that type of thinking and kind of a positive announcements for them. Just, I don't know, trying to make a spin here.
I think what's interesting about that is I feel like the big three going through the UAW stuff is, it's like a cultural problem that I don't think a simple, like it's not as simple as, oh, we're going to implement FSD into our stack, because it's still going to require execution and figuring out how to build a platform that works with that. And that is not as simple as a plug and play. So I think for me, it's like more of a cultural thing that's going on. And I think that's why Tesla has such a large advantage. It's because it's not that the technology is born out of the culture. And so I think those guys, I just don't see, like, Ford, GM, and Stellantis. I'm surprised by how sort of challenging it's been in the last few weeks to get a deal done, and how, like, UAW has a thing. They know they have leverage, and they're going to do whatever they think they need to do to maximize every penny they can get from the negotiations. And then you think about, okay, that's the staff that is actually making the cars. And that's the kind of culture you have set up where something like that can really dictate how you operate as a business. Like, like the thing you talked about, GM as an example. GM is pushing off their EV plans another year, and they're saying it has nothing to do with the UAW. Okay, right. But then in the same sentence, you also said it's to better deploy our capital. I wonder what's going to impact your capital. Maybe a 40% wage increase on your UAW workforce. I'm sure that's not going to impact it, right? So it's just it's obvious that they have a lot going on. So yeah, I think if there's a licensing deal, it's like predominantly positive for Tesla, and then the player that's jumping on with that is going to just benefit from the technology as long as they're able to execute it properly and they create a product that plays well with that software and hardware suite, if that makes any sense. Let me head over to Emmett and James as well before earnings drops here in about 12 to 15 minutes or so. I'm going to go to James first, because I'm sorry, Emmett, James's hair just looks so much better than yours right now, bro. So I hope you understand. James, yeah. And then Emmett, what are you thinking about?
And give us a Loki update too.
And give us your plug for L'Oreal as well.
Yeah, Loki is on assignment in Azerbaijan at the moment, but I'm still here. Me and my hair, we're both here. I tie this hair back almost all the time, but I figured I would leave it down for today. I don't know. It's special. It's earnings day, right, everybody? So yeah, looking forward to earnings as always. I think there's a very tight clustering of expectations in the 70 and 80 cent range in terms of non-GAAP EPS, except for my estimate. I'm the one weirdo way out at around $1. So we'll see what happens today. That is an older estimate. That's from September 11th, the most recent estimate that I sent out. But my deliveries were within, 2%. So I let that forecast ride. And so come on, baby. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes.
Awesome. Emmett, where's your head at, my friend?
Yeah, I was just I was trying to think of what I'm going to say. I mean, everyone in the community provides so much great insight. I feel like I really have nothing to offer these days. There's nothing for me to, but my understanding is the Tesla stock sentiment is very negative right now. There was that institutional note by Morgan Stanley. Adam Jonas passed around a week ago or something. People were passing around about the dinner he had. Institutional investors very negative. And then Gary Black, I just see a lot of expectations. Gary Black had a poll this morning of, what do you think is going to happen if the NASDAQ is flat after hours with the Tesla stock? And almost like 70% of the retail people who follow him, for Tesla are naturally Tesla bulls, but 70% think it's going to go down and like 35% more than 5%. So I just think because of that negative sentiment, I mean, today is a big down day in the market. And I was just really quickly trying to put on a really small, tiny, short-term call option trade in my personal account. I got it in before the close here, just because of, it's most likely going to turn to zero, but it just feels like with the market being down so much and all this negative sentiment that there's a big opportunity for a massive run up in the stock the next couple of days, even if the Tesla earnings just like meets expectations. If the macro market rebounds and it just meets expectations, I just have that weird feeling. It's probably wrong. I wouldn't, I put like 0.01% of my money into it. It's not something I wouldn't ever advise anyone to do. It's not investment advice, but that's just my thought short term. I mean, I usually don't have short term expectations anymore, but this time it just kind of floated in my head today. And I was like, this is, especially now the market's just tanked today, but in terms of the questions on the earnings call, there's a lot of interesting questions. I'm surprised. There's a tough question about full self-driving on there, like why the full self-driving price drop, but there's no other tough questions. A lot of them are just like repeated questions from every quarter. So it's kind of annoying, but what else is you going to ask, right? I mean, I don't know. I feel like there could be a question of like, how's demand responded to the price cuts? Are you pleased with it, or is it more than you expected or less than you expected? Just give us an update on what your expectation is on the demand change based on the price cuts you're doing. Like, are you getting frustrated and you have to keep cutting prices, or is this sort of like what you expect? Like, I would love to hear what Elon says. That's kind of a tough question. And on the positive side, I would say China full self-driving status update would be, I'd like to hear the likelihood of when that's going to come to fruition, because that's a lot of margin free on the table. If I right, Matt? I mean, once they can get 10% or, Matt's done a lot of work on the FSD subscriptions, or not the subscriptions, just the take rate. It's like zero in China, but if they can get even like 5 or 10% of the Chinese buyers to suddenly start buying it, that'll be like free margins. That would be really nice. Those are my thoughts I wrote down sort of.
Matt, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Matt,
sorry,
Matt,
Yashi.
I was just gonna. Oh, go ahead.
No, Matt, you go first, and then I just have a point to make about Emmett after.
No. Don't let Matt speak. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, Parzad, get a hold of this stream. It's going off the rails.
I'm trying. It's been so long.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna quickly reiterate Emmett's point. Yeah, there's over $1 billion of deferred FSD revenue, which is going to be recognized at some point. I think the amount of that's attributable to China is likely extremely low, given the fact that that's, like a 1% take rate was the last update we heard. And that was like 2 years ago, I want to say. So I think probably, I would say maybe a little bit more than half of that's probably related to Europe. And then the majority of the rest is probably US based, because even the US based FSD sales are not fully recognizable yet. So I think China's probably a small piece of it, but you're definitely right, Emmett, that if they could move that take rate up to 5%, 10%, I mean, that's basically just free margin. That would go a long way toward really helping margins. So
yeah,
the good news is they can't go lower.
Yeah, of the million, I think they've sold like close to 1 million Teslas in China. Maybe not quite there yet, but of those people, maybe half of them have like the latest hardware, and maybe 5% of them suddenly go online and pay the $10,000 or whatever Chinese yuan suddenly to bring up that take rate for all the accumulated Teslas there up to 5 or 10%. I would think that would be a nice, when that happens and it shows up on the balance sheet. That's not going to be this quarter, obviously, but it could be a couple quarters away. But when that happens, I think that's when really Wall Street changes their tune and revalues Tesla again.
I was just going to say, what's interesting is, and Emmett has a very perceptive look at the stock market, and I pay attention to what you say a lot, Emmett, because I remember a couple of years ago, October 2021, we were on the stream, you, Dave, and you were like, and Tesla was hitting all-time highs. It was like $1,240 something pre-split, and you got a lot of flack on that stream because you said, "Look, guys, I mean, Tesla can go back under $1,000 next week." Like we all, and everyone was piling onto you, and you were very contrarian. And it's funny because I've noticed that you have this very keen observational look towards data. And so what's interesting now, and you said that you bought a short-term call option just for fun, obviously not financial advice or anything. What's interesting is it kind of this right now feels like, it's like the middle of the basketball or hockey season. You're on a 3-game losing streak. Nothing's really happening. It's dark outside. It's kind of winter. Like, yes, there is a game tonight, but really, I mean, people are just they have this fatigue towards it. And often during these times is when something hits you by surprise. Now, of course, me saying that is kind of meta because it's not going to hit me by surprise if I'm saying it. But it kind of does feel like everyone's like, okay, we've been through these motions before. What really is going to come out of this? And I think it's an interesting position to be in because we have been kind of kicked to the ground a little bit last couple of quarters, and this quarter as well probably is going to be another one with margins going down. So it's interesting just hearing that, and I'd love to hear everyone else's take on what Emmett said there.
I remember that stream. I think Emmett actually said it could go back to 600, is what he was saying. It could stay there for a long time. I specifically remember that stream because I was thinking, no,
I don't remember it,
no
but I'm
way.
glad I said that at the right time. Good. All right.
You did. I remember thinking, nah, like I like Emmett and I normally agree with him, but no way. And sure enough, when things were going down, I was like, holy crap. I remember Emmett calling this. So I remember that stream distinctively, Yashi. It's funny you bring that up.
Herbert, go ahead. I see you're off mute.
Oh,
do you want to add something?
I'm always off mute. I'm sorry about
good.
that. I'm just still stuck on the FSD licensing. I think that where do you guys think it would be? Would it be a Chinese manufacturer? Would it be a European? Would it be American? Jeff and Alexandra were thinking that, or Jeff was thinking that it needed to be an American because it's much more likely that they're going to do FSD licensing for US because that's where they're most fit for. Unlikely it's going to be European. And then Alexandra was thinking that it could be Nissan or one of the Japanese, which I actually believe so as well. And I don't think it's going to be a Chinese manufacturer, right? So anyways, I'm still pretty bullish that I think that he's going to give an update on FSD licensing. This is what's going to move the stock, and this is what's going to surprise everybody, even though he's kind of hinted that it might happen. So that, for me, is the thing that I'm waiting for today. That's really it. And I think it's going to happen.
I disagree. I don't think there's any FSD licensing official announcement. I don't know. I would be very surprised if there was an official FSD licensing announcement before Tesla goes to full FSD on their own first, so I would be very surprised. That's just my opinion.
Hans,
if there
Nick,
is,
I see you guys are off mute.
Yeah, if there is, I definitely think it's going to be Ford. I think Ford is bucking the trend in many ways, right? Like obviously they're the first of supercharger, but they're also the ones who are building plants in Kentucky, which, is a state that you don't have to have union workers. I think they're the ones that are really being the movers in a lot of this, but I agree with Emmett. I don't think that they're going to make an announcement until they have solved it and they think it's feature complete. So I'm more interested to hear any updates on version 12 if they have a timeline for version 12. Again, I doubt they'll give us any of this on an earnings call. I almost feel like Elon has a axe to grind with Wall Street, and he purposely doesn't want to do things on earnings calls. So, we always hear him say that, right? This isn't the place to make announcements, etc. So I think those days are gone.
Hans, go for it.
Yeah, I generally agree with the sentiment that we probably won't see an announcement like that today. That said, as far as who it would be, I agree that Ford has been bucking the trend and that Jim Farley is definitely leading much more so than any of the other big OEMs on moving towards EVs and doing a lot of things right. But that says, I don't think he's thrown in the towel yet on Blue Cruise, and he views that as a lifeline for Ford. And so I mean, there's no telling the conversations that have been had and whether or not that's potentially something that he is giving stronger consideration to. But that said, I think it would be really, really, really smart for Hyundai Kia to be the first one to announce the or potentially even Polestar, but one of these other EV manufacturers who's kind of under the radar and does not have the benefit of being able to take advantage of the IRA. Strategically, if I was one of those players, this would be something that I would be chomping on the bit to get done, to bring my product back to more center stage, both in the public eye and but also to give me a new competitive advantage.
Yeah, I just want to point out that every time that there's an earnings call, Elon uses this opportunity to make a statement, right? He always says something like, we're going to be the largest company, bigger than Apple and Saudi Aramco. We just had early discussions with FSD. So it's not that they're going to announce a licensing agreement, but he's going to say something that, just try to always be visionary, something that's going to keep the Tesla to be seen as don't just focus on the car company. Here's the things that are about to come. He does do this quite often, guys. So
I agree. No, he does do that. He could do the bot, or we'll see. Yeah.
And we closed to the low of day on Tesla, unfortunately, down 4 or 5%. So it seems like the weakness is there. And Emmett, I know you said not financial advice, but I threw $50 into an out of the money call just for the week, just to see what happens. Who knows?
What strike did you pick?
I think it was like 275 is what
okay.
I tried getting filled as.
I did 270.
Oh, okay.
Just as a Hail Mary,
Exactly. And I have to bounce here, guys, but keep it going, and I'll keep listening. So much appreciated.
Thanks, Josh.
Josh. Emmett, was that a
Mr.
weekly
Spiffy.
or monthly?
Yeah,
or
just
what?
for this Friday. It looks like something came out. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like it's going crazy right now. The stock, did something come out? Drop? It's just bouncing around like crazy. All of a sudden.
I'm doing F5 party over here, and nothing's coming up yet. So
sometimes Bloomberg, Dow Jones News gets it first somehow, and the institution now will start trading off of it quickly before it shows up on there.
Let me see if there's
right now
anything
the
on
stock's
Twitter.
moving around.
I also think the emails go out staggered, and there are certain people who get them first and before it ever goes to the website.
Yeah, it looks like it came out, I think, but maybe it's not on their website yet.
Yeah, I don't see it on the website yet. What are you seeing? Like,
I see a Reuters headline from it saying something about like at Tesla, a Gigafactory Texas began pilot production of the Cybertruck, which remains on track. I guess that's like one of the headlines of the report or something. I don't know. It's from Reuters, just came out a second ago. So maybe it'll show up any second on here. I don't know.
All right.
The stock's bouncing around.
I'm on F5 right now. I'm just refreshing F5 and just waiting for the sucker to come out to party. So let's do a quick poll. Like, just one word, positive or negative. Will this earnings make us more positive or more negative? Nick, and then down the line. Go.
Positive.
Negative.
Let's go.
It'll be like, eh.
That's my turn. Positive. James, what about you?
Oh, I'm next. I was just smiling like an idiot earlier because I also bought some of those 275 calls that Emmett was talking about. I got them for 69 cents a piece earlier today. I took that as a positive sign that they were 69 cents. Let's go positive. Why not?
Okay. And then Matt.
Negative.
Matt, you cheated. You already looked at the stock. It's down another 3%.
Stock's down 2%, so that's why. I was. If you asked me 2 minutes earlier, I would have said positive.
What the hell?
I still don't see a report though, so I don't know.
I mean, what the hell? What is it? Gary Black said 16 of the last 18 earnings call, even though it was a positive earnings, we still got the stock going down. It's going to go down for the next several days until Monday when it finally recovers a little bit.
No, meaning what the hell that he cheated. Of course it's going to go down. I'm trying to be positive here. I'm trying to
You never know. It reverses sometimes. Sometimes there's an initial down move and then it comes back up. It's just only been a couple minutes, so you can't really tell yet, I guess. But even though it's down,
it's really to the point. Somebody made the mention, but it's really to the point where like the short term, like the quarterly reports have really transitioned. It's interesting because now when the stock's going up constantly and they're constantly posting records and Wall Street's all about it. it's hard not to always pay attention to the quarterly earnings calls. But when the overall market's down, Tesla is not performing versus expectations. Wall Street has it pegged at a certain place and it's not blowing out of the water. Then, of course, naturally, if you're positive on the story, it's going to be a little bit more like, okay, it is what it is. This quarter is not going to perform well. I'm not going to pay too much attention. But I think when Nick asked this question earlier, or forget who it was, I do think there's something to be said around their outsized moves happening on a day where most expectations are low. There's a higher likelihood chance that something will surprise, as long as Tesla is doing something that's going to surprise people. And generally speaking, I do think the FSD, and the energy side could be those two things, although the FSD thing will be, there we go, next year.
All right, retail investors can now view it.
All right, here we go.
What a disadvantage we have, huh?
Let me go ahead and post this.
It's not rigged.
And no, not at all, bro. It's not rigged at all. Okay, here we go. 2023 update. 7.6% operating margin. So that's probably going to be
66 cents non-GAAP. That's the bottom number. Not good.
66 cents non-GAAP. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely low. Cash flow of 0.8 billion. 3 billion increase in our cash investments quarter over quarter. 4 gigawatt hour energy storage deployed in Q3. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the sheet here. So actually, car GAAP margins are down quarter over quarter sequentially from 18.2% to 17.9%. Operating margins down to 7.6%. Let's see. Energy storage only grew by 50 million quarter over quarter. Adjusted EBITDA is down to 16.1%. Yeah, so GAAP diluted is 0.53, which is so versus my 0.68. That's a pretty significant miss to the downturn. We're not even going to compare it to James's number. Let's see. Let me go down to which page do you guys like to watch?
Dr. Pepper to vodka. I'll be right back.
Usually I like to start with this page first, the actual P&L. I don't know if you guys want to look at something else, but let's see.
Stock's kind of creeping back up after hours, back to where it closed at. So maybe the reversal happened. Yeah.
Well, what
R&D
is
is up
actually
about
is the big miss? Like 17.9% auto gross margin. It's not terrible. I think that's good.
That's
Now
actually
stock
better
is
than I
up
thought.
from where it closed at.
So what
It's in the
exactly is
green
the
now.
big miss, guys? What do you guys think? I didn't catch that.
I'm still reading.
I just think
I'm
there was
just
so
reading
much
through
negative
Yeah,
sentiment going into this.
the credits were 550 million. So if you kind of back those out, I mean, that's actually, I think the core business probably looks a little bit worse. Energy definitely not super strong the way that I was projecting. I mean, essentially flat and not a huge kind of margin. Actually, the margin improvement looks like it was reasonably strong on the energy side. But yeah, I don't know. I need to dive in a little bit more to figure out exactly what accounted for the kind of miss. But I mean, it seems like it was relatively close to what Wall Street was expecting, but even Wall Street was a little bit high, which is extremely unusual.
So cash is up 3 billion to 26 billion now.
It's awesome. That's amazing.
So that's
Amazing.
which is interesting when they're we're gonna have to dig a little bit deeper in that. Let me go ahead and read through some of the slides and see what we see there, and then y'all jump in as you need. For those jumping on, thank you so much for joining us. I'm trying to make this as big as I could possibly make it for all of us to read through it. So I'm going to go ahead and read the summary from the company. Our main objectives remain unchanged in Q3, reducing cost per vehicle, free cash flow generation while maximizing delivery volumes, and continued investments in AI. Our cost of goods sold per vehicle decreased to 37,005, while production costs at our new factories remain higher than our established factories. We have implemented necessary upgrades in Q3 to enable further unit cost reductions for Q4 and beyond, I'm guessing. We continue to believe that an industry leader needs to be cost leader. During interesting statement there. During a high interest rate environment, we believe focusing on investments in R&D and capital expenditures for future growth while maintaining positive free cash flow is the right approach. Year to date, our free cash flow reached 2.3 billion, while our cash and investments position continued to improve. We have more than doubled the size of our AI training compute to accommodate for our growing data set, as well as our Optimus robot project. Our humanoid robot is currently being trained for simple tasks through AI rather than hard-coded software, and its hardware is being further upgraded. Lastly, with combined gross profit generation of over 0.5 billion in Q3, our energy generation and storage business and services and other business have become meaningful contributors to our profitability. So that's the first time I've seen the Optimus bot being called out on the summary page, if I remember correctly. And it's also the first time that I've heard Tesla mentioning that energy is going to be a significant contributor to the business.
I
So
just
it
don't
looks
like
like
the way they said Optimus's hardware is being further upgraded. Does that mean that it's not ready for scalability yet, or maybe it's just a phrase, a turn of phrase, right?
That's
Oh,
not a
it's-
surprise to me at all. Like zero
Yeah, it's
surprise
early.
there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that's a big reference to all the actual actuators that they're using and trying to build in house.
Just looking through the page here. As you guys are reading through, let us know if you're finding something in the comment section. I'll look to bring it up as well.
Yeah.
It takes a few minutes to digest this properly as we're going through it live. So
The
apologize for the dead space, but yeah.
the
I mean,
current
free
installed
cash flow falling significantly, and everybody's been warning about that, right? But the cash that they generate, 3 billion when they're investing 2 billion into supercomputers and more, that's incredible.
So help me understand how their cash reserves grew 3 billion, but free cash flow is down. Does somebody have their head wrapped around this in the report at all? Yet or no? Oh, here's another one. Days of supply for the vehicles is flat. So it looks like so it was raising from 8 to 13 to 15 to 16, and now we ended Q3 at 16. Global vehicle inventory days of supply. So it looks like we've kind of hit like a little bit of a hump. For those that were concerned about growing inventories, looks like it's been relatively flat this year, between 15 and 16.
Farzad, what was your free cash flow question? Because I'm not sure I'm seeing the same thing as you.
Oh, so are you seeing free cash flow up for the quarter?
No, not up, but I mean relatively flat. If you look on what is it, page 24, it's got the
Right
quarterly
here.
free cash flow, and so 848 million.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think the part
what
that you're
page?
referencing,
24?
Farzad, was from the summary. It said they had a quarter-over-quarter increase in cash and cash equivalents of 3, and so that you see that there on the bottom line going from 23 to 26.
23 to 26. I saw it. Hold on. I saw it on this on the balance sheet here. So this is where I saw this. It went from 23 to 26. So that's the largest jump in cash that I've seen.
Yeah, that's different than free cash flow. I mean, that's like the balance, and that includes investments. Right. So their operating cash flow was 3-point-something billion, I think, and their capex was around 2.4. So they had a pretty significant increase in both operating cash flow, and then the capex did not increase maybe quite as drastically. Then they had proceeds from maturities of investments. That's the piece that maybe you're missing. So 3.8 billion of their short-term investments came due this quarter, and then they essentially reinvested a little bit more than that. But one other quick thing I noticed as I was looking through some of the numbers. So on the energy side of the business, like the top line growth again was not super exciting. So I think that kind of trend of deferred revenue that I was explaining before the stream, or in the earliest part of the stream, didn't happen. It went from 1.5 to 1.55 billion, not a huge uptick, but their gross margin actually increased to 24.4%. So they actually had $380 million of gross margin on the energy side of the business, which is, I think, still a lot higher than analysts were expecting on, frankly, a really low base of top line revenue. So whenever the top line energy revenue starts to really kick off, I mean, Elon was talking about hitting a 25% gross margin by the end of this year, and he was saying that was kind of like an aspirational goal. They're already there now, essentially. So to me, I'm super bullish about this energy story. The timing of when more revenue will be recognized, it's delayed a little bit longer, it looks like, but it's still going to be there eventually. And the margin story is just phenomenal.
So what Matt's talking about here, so if you look at the energy storage, generation of storage line right here for revenue, it's up only 50 million quarter over quarter, and it's kind of flat for the year. But then if you look at the cost, you can see it went from 1.3 billion to 1.2 billion to 1.1 billion. So it looks like they're getting more efficient. Let me ask you this: does the IRA battery credit fall in that line, or where is that accrued?
Well, probably, but it's relatively small credit, and so I'm not an expert on this, and frankly, I think Tesla may have a little bit of discretion around exactly how that's treated. But my understanding is it does flow there, but they are not making their own cells for megapacks for the most part. So they would essentially only be getting the $10 per kilowatt hour, kind of pack credit, as opposed to the $39 per kilowatt hour credit. So that alone is a pretty small. I mean, when you think about $10 on a per kilowatt hour on a cost structure of, say, I don't know, $250 per kilowatt hour, it's just relatively small potato. So I think the story is more of their megapacks are coming from Lathrop. They're the Megapack 2XL, whereas this time last year they were all being made in Giga Nevada, and it was just a much less efficient production process.
Hey, Farzad, I think we should go to the page 10, which is the outlook. There's some really good statements there that I think are pretty well the most important things to talk about. So number one,
accounting's the most important thing.
No, it's not. And I'm about outlook. Take a look at the outlook, buddy. I mean, it's awesome, right? So take a look at this. First of all, they say that they're still on track for the 50% CAGR target. That is a big statement, I believe. And then down below, they go, Cybertruck deliveries remain on track for later this year. That's a big statement.
Alexandra, hello.
How are you? Can you hear
some
me?
Beauty on this board. Jeez, about time.
You got James. James did his hair better than me today. How y'all doing?
What are your thoughts?
Not too depressed? Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're all good, then I'm good. Then I'm good. I mean, exactly, right? We're used to the pain this year. That is exactly it. So what's been your findings so far, so that I don't double on stuff you've already said?
We're still processing a lot of this information. So one of the things that we found was energy, that margins are improving, which is good. We were just looking at the outlook on how they're calling out Cybertruck being on track. I think what was the other thing? The $3 billion increase in cash was another one that we saw. But a reduction in gross margin.
Gross margin at 17.9%, and yet the cost of goods is improved, is very good. I think that's a signal that the cost is now controlled and maybe less price reductions in the future. Yeah. Them reiterating the 50% CAGR target, them reiterating Cybertruck going to be hit by the end of this year. We're good. That's the most important thing. Outlook.
Can I push back on that? Real quick? I'm confused.
No.
Because... Oh, okay. I'll just go back into the coffin. So
I love your look, Nick.
Thank you. About time I get some compliments around here.
You're not gonna get compliments from this crew, bro.
The outlook says 50% year over year, right? However, if you go to page 7, it says,
Nick. Sorry, but look, it says we expect to remain ahead of the long-term 50% CAGR with around 1.8 million vehicles for the year. That's fantastic wording.
Let me just get to my point though. If you go to page 7, it starts off with California and Texas, and they say we are expecting the Model Y production rate in Texas to grow very gradually from its current levels. If you look at Shanghai, China, it says we are running near full capacity for several quarters, and we do not expect a meaningful increase in weekly production run rate. And then for Europe, it says similar to Texas, further production ramp in Model Y will be gradual. So what does that mean for 2024? Like that's, you see what I'm saying?
It's not overly enthusiastic, that's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like they are going to be governing the production rate.
Let's get your thoughts, Alexandra. Were you able to process the deck? Where's your head at?
Not the whole deck, but I thought I'd jump on here because I was like, probably these guys are depressed, but I don't think you're that depressed. So what I found encouraging was that there is still free cash flow of nearly $1 billion this quarter, right? I mean, we had this discussion over the last couple of weeks, stock buybacks and all that. Forget about all that. But in the last earnings call, Elon had clearly said it's actually astonishing that given our rate of cutting prices and at the same time expanding in so many new product lines, that we still have free cash flow, and we still have free cash flow, right, of about 800 million this quarter. So that was on the good side. Obviously, the 17.9 was a little bit higher than expected. The operating margin of 7.6 gave me a stomach hit, because we were at 9.6 last quarter, if I recall it right. So that is, 2% in operating margin lower is not encouraging. It's not something I had expected, especially since the car margin is there. So where did it go? Where did these 2% go? I guess there's a lot in research and development. So that's where I stopped searching and jumped in. So that was my first conclusions. Yeah, 9.6 we were last quarter of operating margin. So
and
we are.
I think we touched on this earlier, but maybe we didn't underline it enough. But they doubled their compute capacity this quarter. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Is,
$2 billion. That's where it went. So it's okay that operating margin went down. What matters is auto gross margin flat, and their cost. The cost of goods are stabilized. And so I think that's what the story is. But it's like, price cuts going to still happen in future. Probably not. They're investing for the future.
But I do want to highlight, though, that auto gross margin is actually, if you remove the ZEV credits and the leases, it's down significantly.
Yeah,
it's down significantly. So the one thing I was expecting for this quarter to start realizing, even though COGS for the cars are good or are trending lower, we're still not seeing what I thought would be significant cost decreases from the COVID spike in the supply chain. So I'm still not seeing that. And I know we're ramping Berlin. I know we're ramping Austin and all that stuff. But in theory, as you get more and more cars cranked out of those factories, at some point you should see that to start to flow through. So is that being delayed to the later quarters? Is that not going to be realized?
I think the big reason you didn't see that this quarter is because Shanghai was shut down for a significant portion of time, and that is your by far your lowest cost plant. So as that percentage of your overall pie of deliveries shrinks, like that's going to obviously create cost pressure. But for Q4, they should be running kind of full bore the entire quarter, and I think we'll see potentially some pretty meaningful cost increase or cost decreases in Q4, just because you've got the line running the whole time.
So Xander just texted me saying that the Cybertruck delivery begins November 30th, just announced.
Where?
Bloomberg.
So a month later than I thought. So is that the delivery event, or is that just customer delivers?
Probably delivery event, I bet. Yeah.
He specifically said November 30th, but in page 13, as I pointed out earlier, it does say it's going to begin in November. So that's the news you guys were saying at the earlier of the stream. You guys were all excited about is them talking about Cybertruck, and here we are. That's happening.
And speaking of Cybertruck, Herbert, on page 7, is this the first time in the pilot production they say over 125,000 capacity for Cybertruck?
Yes,
that's kind of cool to see. I was hoping they'd show something like that for Tesla Semi, like over 50,000, over 20,000, but they still don't have a number on Tesla Semi pilot production. But
Tesla just a hard number. Xander said Tesla account just tweeted out the Cybertruck news.
On X.
Yeah,
but why is Tesla bearing the lead in this earnings deck? Why do we have to see it in the title of a picture? That's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, that is extremely weird.
Oh, there it is. Let me go ahead.
125? Is that 125? What year was that? Did it say 2024?
No,
it doesn't say. It's the installed capacity.
The run rate.
Yeah.
Or capacity. Yeah.
It's capacity, not run rate.
Also, yeah, correct. Also,
so that's the official Cybertruck date. Okay.
And that's pilot. Yeah. So that's exciting to see.
So if you guys want to find this, right on X, one of our mods will post a link here. I can actually post a link right now. It's funny how it says twitter.com at the top. Like, come on, guys. Cybertruck production remains on track for later this year, with first delivery scheduled for November 30th at Giga Texas. So my guess is them putting out this date means that they're actually confident they're going to hit this date. So sorry, let me go back to that page we were talking about with the Cybertruck.
The second sentence is big. The second sentence is pretty big too.
Okay.
Why did you
Go ahead and
And
pull it
also
up.
the schedule, that does that mean that's the event, or does that mean that is just, first deliveries?
I think it's
With delivery scheduled for November 30th. I'm guessing that's a delivery event,
Okay. So it's not a
right?
huge
Isn't that how
the
it's
second set
party
worded?
event.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Production
important.
of our
That's good.
higher density 4680 cell is progressing as planned, and we continue building capacity for cathode production and lithium refining in the U.S. Cool. Yeah. Great.
It's in the
But-
deck too. Yeah, that sentence is in the
Yeah.
deck too. But not the sentence about
Um,
delivery on deliveries on the 30th. That's new.
Yeah. This is new. So that's cool. All right, Cybertruck people, we finally got a date. Jeez. About time. That's actually, I can't believe it's here already. Psych. Been waiting forever.
I wore my shirt for this occasion.
Fantastic. So now we know we're going to get a ton of questions on Cybertruck on the call because that date is set. So I'm assuming that we're going to get a fair number of commentary from them to try and sort of steer the commentary towards a positive light. Let's see. So they talk about the training compute. All Hertz rentals in the US and Canada now allow Tesla app access, enabling renters to use keyless lock unlock. That's cool. We designed the in-app service experience. We knew that energy movements 90% KCAR. Okay, cool. Or year over year. Okay, let me go back to that slide we were on with the pilot production. So let me go ahead and add these up real quick and see what the number comes out to be.
It's 2.35 million. I was actually just looking at that.
2.35.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, greater than 2.35 because you got those carats in there. But so if you compare that to 1.8 million, then that implies a 30.1% or 30.5% increase. But obviously, it won't be exactly like that because the first half of the year they're not going to be running at a 125,000 unit capacity out of Cybertruck. So I think it's still a very much open question whether they could do 50% next year, to that question we were talking about earlier. But just looking at the capacity numbers, I would say it doesn't inspire huge levels of confidence, kind of in conjunction with the wording of a very measured increase of Model Y capacity in Texas and Berlin. To me, it seems like the more likely scenario is that we do 30 to 40% volume growth next year.
Yeah, how is Berlin and Texas? They've been coming online for like 3 years now. How are they still at like 370? I feel like those are just such slow progress. Is it demand or are they just slowly ramping up? I think it's got to be demand. I think they should be able to ramp those up more if they wanted to.
It's demand because Morgan Stanley pointed out that they've decided to keep it at that level. Both factories.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Okay. Yeah. What's the chance that this is a sandbag?
Little.
I think small. Yeah. I mean, Elon's been talking about macro being scary for a long time. And, to me, the puzzle pieces all kind of fit together with that story. So I think they're being cautious with their build out and kind of planning for the long term. And, FSD is going to save the day, whenever they crack that. I think that's kind of the way that he's thinking about the business.
Yeah. I actually think Elon, while he doesn't care necessarily anymore about the stock price, I actually think he might prefer that the stock price doesn't go up too much because he knows they don't have to raise capital ever again, but he prefers in the near term it doesn't go up too much because he doesn't want to see top engineers leave from all their stock grants. They've, got a certain amount. He saw probably a mass exodus in the last major run up. And so I feel like he almost even though he's not trying to keep the stock down, he almost prefers that, investment sentiment doesn't get ahead of itself and bring up the stock price substantially too soon. That's my theory.
Yeah, but they also need the stock to go up to incentivize or, for their employee base. Otherwise, there may be more talks of unionizing. Like that could be a real thing.
This is a slide from the deck that's highlighting the starting price of a Model Y, inclusive of national and state level subsidies across the entire country, state by state. Colorado, you can get a Model Y brand new with state and federal incentives for $31,490.
Wow.
There's your advertisement. There you go.
We got the 3,500 people watching us on the live stream that already own Teslas looking at this. Yeah.
Thank you
you guys
joining us, by the way.
I want to
I soon give my leases back. I mean, they will have when you see how much they think they're still worth, right? When I leased them 2 years ago and when I give them back, there's gotta be something for them trying to get rid of them at those prices.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But you're
somebody was saying
right,
something?
Fazet.
I was
Sorry,
just
Fazet.
asking about the cost of goods. If we take a look at that table, 37.5, 37.5, right? And so that's only $500 lower than the previous quarter, but that's still lower. This is automotive gross margin, cost of goods per vehicle sold. What do you think, Matt? I mean, is that significant? I mean, that is still lower than it was before.
So I didn't do the math. So you taking
Let me
the
put it in my
15,656. Well,
Page-
I mean,
page
I would say one thing you'd want to adjust out before you do that kind of simplistic calculation is Model S and X were a much smaller percentage of deliveries this quarter. So it would make sense that your cost of goods sold is decreasing just because of the kind of vehicle mix between S and X and 3 and Y. So if you normalize for that, I'd wonder how meaningful the COGS difference is. And that may be one step too complicated to do on the fly here.
Some here. 430, 488. Then COGS, where is it?
Yeah, so remember that Jeff Lutz was saying that the $2,000 price cuts, but he said he only expects $400 cost of goods. You know, the drop is $400, and that's why they did the price cuts.
So if I show something from my spreadsheet real quick, and then we'll go to Alexandra. I know Alexandra, you were saying something here just a second ago. So if I do excluding ZEV credits and leases. So I put in I got to put in the other numbers, but I put in sales revenue and then auto sales costs as well.
18,584, 15,656. Yeah, you get to 15.7.
Yeah, 15.7, and then the COGS is actually up quarter over quarter.
Exactly.
From 35.3 to 35.9.
Exactly.
So like that,
is.
with a lower mix of SMX.
And with a lower total number. Yeah.
What's going on? That'd be an interesting one to talk about.
Exactly. So we've not the economies of that we expected on the cost side.
I do think part of that is explained though by the same factor that we were talking about on the automotive
Shanghai shutdown.
Shanghai shutdown. Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to kind of figure out how much all of those impact everything, but it was definitely Shanghai was a much lower mix, and so that would probably be a pretty meaningful contributing factor.
Yeah, and we had 3 out of the 12 weeks that it was closed.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So what's funny is, we're bringing up all these negatives, right? Look at the stock. Ready?
Wait a minute, Farzad. I'm the only one that was saying that there's all these great positives.
I was gonna say, honestly, I know Alexander's gonna say, oh, of course Nick's gonna say this, but I see all this as positive when you really zoom out. Like, look what's happening to all the other automakers. Look what's happening to the economy. Look at the world, and we're sitting here upset about 15%. We're sitting here upset about record numbers, about new Cybertruck. I mean, like, for whether we're in a recession or not, or World War III or not, I mean, we are like, this is great. When you look at everything that's going on in the world right now, we got to put things in perspective. Let's not get lost in the earnings call for what's really happening.
Nick, I agree with you, but this is an earnings call session, right? I mean, we're all quarter long explaining how much we believe in the medium and long term of Tesla. Today, we're looking at numbers, which I think we should be very frank about it, which are disappointing compared to what we expected. And I found their language overly prudent and overly tempering, right? Gradual building up and difficult times and all that. We haven't even had the call yet, so I can just imagine where Elon is going with all this.
But not disappointing compared to expectations. It's right in line with what people have been saying that they expect, right? I mean, was there any major surprise?
Not the auto margin X credit. The auto margin X credits, which is 15.7, is really significantly below what people expected. They expected that between 17 and 17.5 somewhere. 15.7 is lower.
I would just
The-
like
the
to
one
say, I
thing-
think the sentiment going into this was as bad as I've ever seen the trading sentiment. You know, the short term and investor institutional sentiment and the retail sentiment was, you know, as negative as I've ever, as imbalanced as I've seen. So even with a so-so earning report, it doesn't surprise me the stock's kind of floating upwards here.
That's exactly it. I think people expected that, and now it's just turning the page and going ahead. I mean, net income this quarter was 1.8 billion, and I mean that is the lowest that we've had, and it's half of what we had Q4 2022. Half. So that's just, and I mean, I understand there are lots of reasons for it, but when people see that, if they can accept that and the stock stays at 245, I think that's actually good news.
I think the overarching theme of the company didn't post great earnings, regardless of expectations, versus where, let's say, the bulls or folks that were expecting the economies to scale to really kick in, even in like adverse situations, didn't really materialize. The fact that they were able to still have positive cash flow and still increase their balance sheet in this environment, that's like the overarching theme before full self-driving and bought. And that for long term,
Sure.
that's insane. That's like ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it truly is. But from a quarter to quarter perspective, some of those things that I think investors are looking for haven't materialized. And so my head says that it's either not going to materialize or it will materialize. It will just come later than we expected. And in either sort of side, that's okay. You know, for long-term investors, it's okay. So, but it's still fascinating to sort of sit down and look at these numbers quarterly, because like you get a better exposure to how I think for a lot of investors in this company, and I would put myself in this bucket too, I get excited about Tesla executing at a high level. And when it doesn't, it's like, okay, how do I continue to learn how to temper my expectations? So this is yet another like positive thing that has happened for me developmentally, because I can say, okay, cool, yet another opportunity for me to sit down and actually temper my expectations and put that, you know, increase the Farsi error rate from, you know, sandbag by 20% to sandbag by 30%, right? And then I can continue to craft that moving forward. So it's a positive from this sort of earnings report as well.
And
for those
again,
that are out there thinking about doing this for themselves, you know.
We're looking at Tesla versus Tesla instead of looking at Tesla versus everyone else. And you tell me another
Exactly.
car company that even made any improvements, let alone complete crash and burn this entire year last quarter. So, and
I
Jeff
agree.
James has the best charts to show all of that.
Haha.
So great.
Did I make
Those
enough charts about the U.S. EV sales comparisons
Oh.
by model?
Oh,
That's my question.
Yeah, the last two
Let's-
charts you've been making is just brilliant. The way you kind of put it in context, and it's just wonderful.
Well, these headlines, Tesla is losing market share, just lies. That's just a lie. It's not true that Tesla is losing market share. Tesla is gaining market share if you look at the market, which is all new vehicles, right? It's only when you draw an artificial subset of that market to be electric vehicles only that Tesla can be penalized by how bad a year their competitors had last year. It's very easy to lose EV market share if you had a great year last year and your competitors had a terrible year. It becomes super easy for them to take
I mean,
EV
it's
share from you.
I agree with you, James. It's completely ridiculous, the criticism of market share in the EV field. I mean, nobody can keep up on an 80% market share when you have new entrants into a market. And that's the easiest way to explain it. I think if you really want to do it on the EV basis, and I throw that every time out when people come with that, then do it on a profitability basis, right? Show me which ones of the other ones are profitable. And there we're quickly out of the story. Or as you say, do it on the whole market, because as you've probably seen, we've discussed a lot this week, this study where people expect by 2026, 2028, more EVs sold than ICE. And there we'll see who gets out with the upper hand once that is over. So, I mean, that's a complete ridiculous thing. And let me just say it, while I'm quite critical of these numbers, I mean, there's not much to be critical about, but I try to analyze them in a unbiased way. It does in no way alter my overall enthusiasm of Tesla. This has been a tough quarter. We've been warned it would be a tough quarter. I think they actually, given all that, I really think they were right to lower the prices and maintained as much sales as possible in this environment, right? So the whole way they set up the strategy, and I'm very happy they didn't throw millions out of the window for any ads. That's the other point, because ads for what and which cars? At the moment, the cars they can now produce in Q4 have a long waiting list, and will be served. So I'm really pleased the way they managed their money, but it's been a tough quarter, and I'm pleased it's over.
Careful, Alexander. We got like 4 people here are super
Yeah, I know.
pro
I know.
ads.
The rebellion is here. I know.
Let's talk about
It's
ads
all
for
right.
the next hour and a half.
Oh my gosh, anything but.
Wait, we should do it. Is Zach Kirkhorn gonna make an appearance? Should we do an exit interview with Zach
I
Kirkhorn?
doubt
Oh
it.
yes, let's do it, Matt. Come on.
Oh, let the last one. Let's do the last Zach Kirk. Okay, this
A
is an
goodbye
honor.
one.
Yes, a goodbye. Oh, I love this. All right, let me pull up some.
We gotta pull up the say questions or something.
So why?
Well, I think why don't we get the story on
explain us.
Zach's?
No, come on, Zach. Explain us what happened here.
Zach,
Come on.
yes, tell us why you left Tesla.
And why the results are there, because now you left. Did you know these results would come, Zach? Tell us.
Well, yeah. So I think really what happened is, Elon and I were talking about strategy earlier this year, and frankly, I think we just had a little bit of a disagreement around some of the finer points of the Tesla strategy. So that's about it.
So
Which
it had
finer
nothing
point,
with you.
darling? Which finer point?
Well, it had nothing to do with you want to be CEO.
Yeah, so I guess I can go into some of the finer points in a bit more detail. I think, as you're all well aware, at the beginning of this year, I gave guidance for automotive margins above 20%. Now, obviously, this guidance assumed certain levels of pricing for our vehicles. And at the time, Elon and I were talking about how price cuts were really just one of many demand levers that we thought we could pull. But as the year went on, it became clear from our orders that those initial price cuts that we initiated in January, would not be sufficient to meet our volume goals for the year, at least at the margin guidance that I had provided. So, I assumed that we would start trying to pull some of those other demand levers in order to maintain that margin guidance. And I brought this up with Elon, and he said, nope, we're not doing that. The most important thing is that the vehicles are affordable. So then I said, well, I agree that, vehicle affordability is an important metric in consideration. But I also said that I thought our margin guidance was important, and that I thought it would be wise to try to maintain that margin guidance. To which, Elon replied, how do you expect to hit the guidance if people can't afford the cars? So I just said I thought we should try different demand levers, like advertising. And then he said, that's retarded. And I said, please don't use that word. And he said, if it was up to you, you'd run this business like an MBA. And then I just said, no, please don't say that word. That's not really polite. And while it is true that I have an MBA from Harvard, I didn't think that I was in fact trying to run the business like an MBA. So really, it was just a difference of opinions, and I thought it made sense to try some different tactics and strategy, and it was clear that I wasn't going to win that argument.
You just want to be CEO. Don't lie to us.
No, I really like
the new CFO.
Spreadsheets.
Can you do?
I don't know.
How do you say his name?
Maybe after this one, I
Taneja?
can.
Taneja. Tane. How do you say his name?
Haven't heard him speak yet.
I feel like you got lost in that persona there, Matt. Like
that was a really in-depth answer.
Even his eyes. You see his eyes? He's like,
yeah.
You're talking about eyes. Look at your face.
All right. I tell people not to bully Matt, and what's Matt do? He bullies me. You know what, Matt? I am team bully Matt now. Thanks.
Nick, are you
I'm
the
still Team
guy
Matt.
from the original
I'm
Karate
Team
Kid that beats up Daniel? Are you one of those people at Halloween?
I am, but did you not watch the sequel? Come on.
I did.
I was actually the good guy.
All right, let's do let's actually go through the questions and see which ones we think what kind of questions we're expecting here. Actually, let's see. Herbert, are you able to share screen on your end by any chance? You should be able to share screen, right? I need to step out for 2 minutes. Do you mind maybe pulling that up on your end, and then once I'm back, I'm happy to take it over if you'd like. I'm going to post the link on the private chat. Is that okay? Do you mind doing that for a hot second? I figured you got some live stream experience.
While he does that, just high level, like my big takeaway from this week, Ford, F-150, Lightning, people getting laid off, lines coming down, GM delaying stuff, Cybertruck, November 30th launch. Like that to me is like this week encompassed. And I think that's extremely optimistic for everything else, the current climate and everything. I think that's a big thing to take away.
Oh, Farzad left. Okay. So,
I agree.
okay. Well, we could talk about Farzad. Can you do a Farzad impression? Hello. Am I on?
I literally don't know anything about anything, but I'm glad you guys are all here. That's it. I don't know.
All right. Let's start with this. So 4680 cell. How far are you from the specs you laid out on battery day? When do you expect to achieve what you laid out on battery day? Okay. Oh, wait. Is this the right question? It says answered. What? Oh, this is Q2. He sent me the Q2, dude.
Oh, sorry, guys. I'm a total idiot. I can't believe I did that.
Wow, that was pretty good. That was good.
How many Cybertruck deliveries do you anticipate for 2024? Yeah, you guys thought that was production capability, right? Not actual numbers. So I think Farzad is 70,000.
He's back, Matt. He's back, Matt.
Yeah,
I have my headphones on, dude. You son of a bitch.
I know. We could hear you going to the bathroom. It was kind of gross.
Yeah, you didn't even wash your hands.
How do you know? Sorry, go ahead. Are these Q2? Did I send you Q2? Okay.
You sent me Q2, dude. So
my bad.
So
okay,
2024 Cybertruck
Deja
deliveries.
vu. We just had this conversation.
Yeah, you're at 70,000. What's everybody else at?
I'm at 1,000.
2024. Emmett.
They have like 1,000 now.
Oh, 2023. Sorry, end of this year. 2020. I say 1,000 for the rest of this year. 2024, 100,000.
Yeah, I'm at the same.
65.
Same.
75.
42,069.
It's gonna be tough to ramp it. Just remember, the gaps and how precise he wants this all to be. I mean, obviously, Jeff told us all that that's an illusion anyway. I just flipped through the pages again. One last thing, and I know you want to come back to the questions, but weren't you all surprised how low solar has gone? I mean, is there any point keeping this up? No, right? Okay, perfect. We can go back
we
to
all defer to Matt Smith to
thinking.
answer this question.
Yeah.
My theory has been.
Zach, you're there still? Zach, what's
Solar
happening
roof
with
is-
solar?
I'll just answer it as me because I don't want to put the whole Zach thing. I mean, if it was an insurance question, I think that's something Zach would love to talk about. But I mean, Solar Roof is really disappointed, and I think the limiting factor there has just been the installs. Like they got the manufacturing efficiency done, but they couldn't install them in any sort of cost efficient way. I mean, Emmett had this done, and he had like a team of was it like 24 workers for 3 weeks or something like that? And if you just
Two different
run
teams,
some,
yeah, two different teams.
it's just
one
insane.
for the first 2
And
weeks, another for the next 2 weeks. Yeah,
and they never really got any more efficient at that. And so it maybe if you could have some massive partnership with like home builders or something like that to put them on, in a more kind of systemic way across, 20 to 50 houses at the same time, maybe that might make more sense. But you're not going to have that be a meaningful part of the business. A couple of years ago, Elon was talking about 10,000, 20,000 roofs a week. And it's completely unprofitable, and they've raised the prices so that it's actually cost prohibitive now. And then their solar panel business is it's more or less commoditized, I think. And so in a lot of geographies, they're just outsourcing to third-party installers anyway. So I don't know if they think they can turn the corner on Solar Roof eventually, then I think it makes sense just to hang on to it. But it's not like it's a huge drag on earnings or anything like that. So I'm fine with them kind of holding on and seeing if there's a way. Because I think like the real value to me is like from a strategic perspective, if you can bundle EV charging, the Powerwall, and the solar all together, and then eventually have a home HVAC, there's a lot of utility in being able to bundle those products together and sell services back to the grid. So I think I'd like to see them keep it just
and
for that
solar
kind of
is
strategic value.
and solar would be the key element to keep, or could you do the rest without the solar? My question actually is, do you think they could sell the solar business?
I don't know that it's worth a whole lot right now, and I don't think they would want to. I think that like the real benefit for solar, I think, is that it makes the economics of storage a lot more meaningful. Like if you just run the math on what's the benefit of putting power walls in your house, it's like atrocious. But if you do solar plus power walls, then all of a sudden you can actually do like a reasonable IRR, and like the customer economics actually kind of make some sense. So I think you need to have the offering. Now, could you just use some other solar provider? Sure, but yeah, I think the bundling is really the value.
Okay, they're not going to sell the solar business. They're de-emphasizing solar retail, but they're going to use the solar for corporations, and they're going to create a solar farm because solar generation is number one in their three.
Oh yeah, Herbert
pillars.
and the solar farm. Yeah, I forgot
This is
about
my
that
theory.
chapter. I know.
It's my theory, and it's going to come true. You're gonna say sorry to me.
We will. I promise
theory-
you. I promise you, if that solar farm comes true, I send you a bunch of flowers.
You
I
can't say
promise.
sorry. You have to say sorry. Make sure you say
I'm
sorry.
Sorry.
Canadian.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I see Alex
Well, you're-
Kimmerly in the YouTube comments saying when they can train optimists to install solar, it'll explode. And I agree with that. I think right now it's still going to be inefficient for a long time, but this could be 3 to 5 years away when you see some optimist bots, doing stuff for experimental solar installations, and maybe 5 to 7 years before it's like massive.
So
Good point.
While Alexandra kind of brought us back to the report, there was one other thing I wanted to touch on too before we go into the say questions, and that's on the revenue side. I think the ASP was actually a lot lower than we were expecting. So that's potentially a troublesome trend. So that I think that decreased a lot more than I think almost any of us were expecting. A part of that they disclosed on the revenue side was there was a $400 million FX hit, so foreign currency. So that I'm sure hurt profitability and the top line revenue a pretty significant amount. But the ASP trend I think is one of the reasons some of the kind of pro advertising camp, and I definitely don't want to have this debate right now, but this is kind of the margin compression that we were worried about. ASPs are a lot lower than we expected, even with the revised kind of lower guidance.
What's wrong with lower ASPs? I think that's a great news.
I think lower ASPs is acceptable if costs really go down. But as we just saw, the cost per unit did not. And that's where it gets a little bit. I mean, I'm no fan of ads because I don't want to spend that money at the moment. But it is clear that with current COGS, the ASP going so much down, it just goes straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, and I thought we'd have 20% gross margins, like I said.
Oh, there
earlier,
you are.
and the
Zach's
fact
back.
that-
Well, the thing
fact
is,
that
margins
ASPs
might
are
go
so low
down
just makes it
to
impossible.
margins might go down to 12% if they don't do something to educate the public to meet with demand at these prices. They might have to cut prices again. We'll see.
That's kind of my concern is like we put this issue to bed with the huge price cuts in January, and it's like, oh, that wasn't enough, and then okay, we'll do them again. Q2 now Q2 is going to be the low point, and ooh, that wasn't quite enough either. Now we're moving the ball to Q3. Now okay, Q3 is finally going to be the low for margins. Well, what if it's not? What if they don't have demand and they need to cut prices again? Like there's really no clear end in sight yet. Like I don't really think we're past this hurdle. So
and I've done quite a lot of studies on that, and we discussed that on Cyberbulls. The prices of competitors are just going so low. I mean, this morning I saw in Europe a Citroën EV coming out with their current incentives below 20,000 euros. Of course, it's not a Model 3, no doubt, but it is not a bad car. So you're having suddenly this segment where the competitors couldn't so far construct in that line, were rather in the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 range. But you now suddenly get competitive products in the lower price ranges, and Tesla wants to be sure to be competitive there.
I still feel like when you study it from a like to like sort of like performance to range in price, I still feel like Tesla is so much better than the competition. I mean, so much better, and I think that's the reason why Model Y is performing so well. I think the broader story is going to be. It's going to be interesting to see if these trends continue when the interest rates ease up. I think that's going to be the real litmus test to see what the demand really is like for these products and how it's going to impact price. Because if interest rates go back down, but the ASPs continue to go down, then the overall trend of how we're at least how I'm thinking about EVs needs to be changed. And it needs to be more about, okay, TAM is already fulfilled for these kinds of products. Maybe there is still some room to grow, but for you to really start penetrating the broader market, you have to come out with brand new product lines, like the compact car, like the Cybertruck, so on and so forth. It's going to be interesting to watch.
I also don't think that just like Citroën coming out with a lower priced vehicle, I don't think that's a inhibitor to Tesla, because look at the Chevy Bolt. You can get that for what, like under 20K now, but it's not like that's doing great.
Yeah, no,
So
but
it's not. But my point is,
the Chevy Bolt is an old car and in no way comparable. Where the Citroën that they just launched this morning it's a stretch, but it is comparable, and it's a new, quite good-looking car.
Yeah, but
and it's much more a competitor actually to the Volkswagens of this world, no doubt.
Yeah,
it's not.
like
It's not a somebody who wants a Tesla is probably not looking at the Citroën. But I do believe Tesla is making sure that in a worldwide, much more competitive market, they are extremely well priced.
That comment.
Shout out,
yeah,
Zach.
I just think it's I feel like we're living back in like 2006 to 2009 again, not because of the economy, but this is like the smartphone thing all over again. Like, oh, HTC is coming out with this phone. Oh, Nokia is coming out with this phone. Motorola. And it's like people are missing the fact that it's not about the hardware at all. It's about the software. And
well, what I'm surprised is the Model 3 Highland did not come out as a lower price new segment while we're waiting for the Model 2, the compact car. They needed to fill that space, and that's what I fully assumed that they were going to do. They did not. And so now we're kind of sitting here wondering what's going to fill that next segment, bring it price down.
Should we do questions from Say? How should we prepare for this?
Oh.
Let me bring up a few comments from the comment section as well. We have a lot of people joining us. How many people on your end, Herbert? How many people watching you live right now? Do you know? Oh, you're on mute. What about you, Nick? How many people you got?
1,300.
1,300. Nick,
how are you guys looking at this?
top left. In your YouTube studio.
All right, I'll pull it up.
We'll assume that it's at least one. So 1,300. We got 6,200 here. So we got somewhere around 8,000 people watching us live right now. How crazy is that? Thank you so much for joining us. Amazing. Really honored. I hope Matt is not scaring you away with his Halloween face he's got going on there. Cool. So let me pull up some questions from the comment section. Make sure we get some shout outs here from everybody that's joining us. Post your question in YouTube. We will be able to bring it up from any other 3 channels, from either Nick's, Herbert's, or mine. Let us know your thoughts on how you're seeing how you're thinking about the earnings report and what you think is going on. Tesla Daily just finished, so we all come here. Thank you so much. Shout out to Rob, by the way. Rob is the GOAT. Rob's been doing this for a real long time. Yeah, we're the B team. B team. Let's go.
What time's the earning call start? 5 or 5:30?
In about half an hour. 5:30.
5:30
Eastern. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to pull up some comments. The problem is that Model 3, 42,000 euros, and Model Y, 47,000 euros is still high for European wages. Need to keep lowering costs.
Yep.
Yeah. My question: what if the competition just dies? Some of them are trending that direction. You know,
governments will step in, I think, and help bail them out.
Can't take the Model 3 and make it $10,000 cheaper without a radical design or re-engineering of the manufacturing process. Yep. And I think that's why with the Highland, or whatever you want to call it, they went luxury. They went a little bit more value for money, for what you pay. You guys should start a softball team. That sounds like a great idea. It's the only sport you can play with a beer in your hand. It's fantastic. Let's see, Jeff.
We should
Jeff,
do a live
shout out to
stream
Jeff.
poker game.
Oh, I like that. That's a good idea. Tesla Cogs from Jeff. Shout out to Jeff Lutz. Great follow on X and always on Hyperbulls and Tesla Show. Fantastic resource for anything supply chain manufacturing. Shout out. Tesla Cogs is not a binary discussion. Yes or no on further price cuts. Look at the rate of change of both and converge. Looking good. That's seems like to be the overall sentiment on this call as well. Is that even though short term we're not seeing it, long term we're thinking we're going that direction. Let's see. Can you explain the $2 finance repayment on page 22? Massive jump. Matt, did you see this by any chance? On page 22? A resident accounting guy?
That is
Finance
not a
guy?
repayment. That is borrowing. It was repayments in the previous quarters. They were negative numbers in parentheses. It's a positive number in Q3. That is net borrowings under vehicle and energy product financing. So yes, Tesla's cash balance went up this quarter, and one of the things that drove Tesla's cash balance up was $2.2 billion in new borrowings in the financing section of the statement of cash flows.
Which had a
But I
cost
will
to
let-
it, actually. Do we see
Yeah,
the
I'll let
cost
Matt
somewhere as
tag
well?
onto that.
Yeah.
You're on mute, bro. Learn how to stream.
It's Zach.
Sorry. Yeah, no, yeah, I think James hit it exactly right. I got too many tabs open. Now I'm trying to go back to the balance sheet over here. But if you look at the on page 21 on the balance sheet, there's the debt and finance leases net of current portion. That increased from 872 million to 2.4 billion. So that's exactly where that kind of increase is coming. So yeah, your cash jump this quarter, the majority of it is really coming from this borrowing that James highlighted. So we did have pretty strong free cash flow of $1 billion, though don't discount that. But basically the cash story is just this $2.4 billion in borrowing, or $2 billion ish in borrowing, plus the $1 billion of free cash flow.
Awesome. By the way, we have 6,200 total. The number on the top left is across all three. It's still crazy number. Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let's do a few more and before we start prepping for the call. If you're just joining us, by the way, we're about an hour and a half in since we started. We've already done a little bit of a deep dive of the earnings call, of the earnings deck. We've kind of given our thoughts here. You feel free to rewind and look at sort of what we've said and some of the comments we've made. However, in about half an hour, Tesla's earnings call will start, and then we'll also be listening to that live right here on this channel, or Herbert's channel, or Nick's channel. And then we'll also be dissecting the call afterwards, and I'll be putting together notes as well live as the call is going on. And then you'll see people's reactions as they talk about the Cybertruck, and we'll be like, oh my God, we're so excited. This is great. Let's see. Nick's face is normal. What are you talking about? Yeah, I know. Yeah, he looks exactly like he always has looked.
Healthy,
do you want to see? Yeah.
healthy, smiling.
He's too
Relax.
good
Young
looking
as white
without
as
the
I am.
mask. He's too good looking without the mask. He needs to put the mask on.
I actually took my mask off. Yeah, this is what I really look like.
You gotta see him in
Exactly.
person though. It'll blow you away. Do you want to see Jim?
I mean,
No,
just
just
everybody
going at the
else.
ending.
He's still the best looking, right?
Farzad, you got to
absolutely.
stop with this. You got to stop.
Do you? Okay, let's. Funny comment. Let's see if I can find a couple other ones that are specifically around. Slower Cuber just gave us a $10 super chat to somebody. Thank you so much. Looked like COGS per vehicle dropped by 400, and much of the cost increases were for improvements to plants and setup for new vehicles. I read the report as positive. No, yeah, we've sort of talked about the overall trend of COGS. When I do the math, excluding lease and ZEV credits, the COGS are actually, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sequentially looks up when I remove those two things. But they could be doing some math behind the scenes where they're sort of saying, hey, if you sort of do our math on a run rate basis or whatever, however they're doing it, we're seeing that COGS are actually down sequentially. And absolutely is. But there are some broader trends from a COGS perspective that I still think need to appear. And Matt was talking about Shanghai plant being down is going to impact COGS this quarter. You also got Austin and Berlin that still need to ramp up. And then you got the presumably higher costs from COVID that need to flow through the system and flush out so we can realize some of the lower lithium and nickel prices and so on. Did you guys want to add anything else to this? No? Okay, let's do one more, and then we'll do maybe the say questions or whatever else we want to jump on. Is there anything on your end, Herbert or Nicholas, you want to bring up from a comment?
I just posted you a link. I think you should show it.
Okay.
The Cybertruck delivery thing.
Ooh.
I'm looking for Easter eggs in the picture. Anyone want to see
Here we
any?
go. I see your
Have
face
there
on there.
been Easter eggs lately? Like in the last few things?
I feel like we're due
That's
for one.
confirmation that the delivery event is November 30th.
Oh,
Alexander.
I do see a person in that. That's creepy. That's creepy. I literally see like a woman.
Okay, why can't I zoom in? Hold on. Let me download this. Let me get this on my thing so I can
Did you guys think it was weird that there's no mention of Mexico?
That is weird. Yeah.
I think it's a Berlin situation going on over there. From what I've been reading and what I'm sort of getting myself educated on the Mexican government, this is par for the course with how they operate. Unless I'm wrong.
For which I'm really pleased that they're starting the Model 2 or whatever it's going to be called in Austin first. I think that was the best solution ever. It's going to put some pressure on them as well.
Didn't we just have the governor of Mexico come up and make some statements? And so it looks positive.
And traveling to Shanghai. Remember? Remember, Herbert?
What's that?
He's traveling to Shanghai to look at the factory. But this picture is strange, right? What do you all see? I see nothing. I see as if it's my x-rays of my ribs.
Stainless steel.
That light is pretty cool. The headlight thing.
The angle of the windshield looks very odd. It looks like it's completely flat, not like angled upward. It's just
where's the windshield?
Almost like a phone. Yeah, it's like basically parallel with the hood, which doesn't make any sense.
Oh, is the front open?
Is it?
No,
maybe.
No, the way I'm looking at this is the Cybertruck is like angled. So it's like a top corner view. This is the hood. This is the windshield. Here's the wheel well. Here's the front, and it's just the camera's like slanted. It's like a top corner view, kind of.
Yeah, it's a throwback to the original Cybertruck unveiling event teaser image, except this one you can actually make out. The one, the original was very hard to make out, and people couldn't tell whether it was the front or the back of the Cybertruck, and there were all sorts of fun rumors and guessing games, and people looking for hidden images and 12.9 nonsense, and you remember.
Those are the good days. All-time high days.
No, that was before the all-time highs. That was when it was on a down, like right after the Cybertruck event. Then the stock tanked for a while, and then it came right back. Yeah, and it started getting to all-time highs after that.
And just for reference, so on the day before, Elon is the keynote speaker in that New York Times. I don't recall what it's called. Something with a D event in New York where he's speaking on the 29th. So he's going to travel to New York and then to Texas.
I didn't know that.
I'm gonna try, and I have an editing software thing. I'm gonna try to move around the brightness and contrast and see if we can discover anything here.
Nixie's a lady somehow. I want to know what's going on with that. It's like a Rorschach test, I think.
You guys see anything?
I think Emmett said a lady, and all of a sudden I saw a lady.
Where do you see this lady?
Where's the lady? We're in the Phantom area. Oh my god!
Out. You're too close now. It's like a Monet. Like you can't be so close. There you go, Alexander. Squint those eyes. You know how it is.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't really see anything.
Whoa.
I mean, you can make.
Oh, there's something in the light when you go do that again.
Yeah, there is.
It's just pixelation. That's just pixelation.
Let us run
like
with
here?
it, man. It's just pixelation. No, that's how many deliveries there are going to be.
Put it in. What is it called? The AI thing that does stuff.
Yes, chat.
Oh, GPT-4.
Yeah,
GPT-4.
Should I ask? What do you
is
see?
crazy. This is
uploaded.
This is Tesla cult-like behavior.
Conspiracy theory corner.
Looking for breadcrumbs. Looking for breadcrumbs.
Herbert, look at my face. We are normal. All right.
These are normal times. Come on.
How is it that I've become the bear of this group? I've been the Cyberbulls. I've become the bear. Come on, everybody. I'm supposed to be like the most out there person, optimistic.
You don't think you are?
Are you?
We're still the most out there person.
Herbert, so before we started all this, Farzad, you went around, you asked us like, do we think it's gonna be positive, negative sentiment, all that? Emmett was with Herbert, are you still negative, or are you a little more positive? Like,
no, I mean,
you're
it's
still
just I
negative?
think that no matter what you see in the earnings call, you're going to get a negative reaction. People are looking for the negative instead of the positive, and then they'll turn
Forget
around
them,
on Monday.
Herbert, you.
No, I think this is exactly what I was expecting, which is everything was right on line with the targets. As far as I'm concerned, there was nothing negative, massive negative. And I think that, I told you guys earlier that even though they announced the Cybertruck date today, that's not like, for us, we're excited, but the general public, general investors were not big excited about that. I think at the actual call, when and Elon will try to say something very positive, and I'm still looking for the FSC licensing. That's what I'm looking for. And otherwise, I think this is pretty part of the course. This earnings call, exactly what we were expecting.
I see promotion poster.
I asked GPT what he thought about that, or she. Oh my god, I
Oh,
misgendered
that's
GPT.
cool.
I'm so sorry.
Whoa.
Oh,
Yeah.
careful.
I'm gonna get demonetized now. All right, we got about 20 minutes until the call starts. Thank you for joining us. All right, so how should we wrap up the last 20 minutes before? Oh, say okay.
Yeah, let's go through say.
Let's go.
I
Farzad, you ready to
love
eat hot
the
wings, by the
FSD
way?
question.
Farzad, I'll be
oh my
back
God.
after the earnings call, okay? I'll see you a
sounds
bit
good.
later. Thank you.
See you in a bit.
Wait,
Thank you for joining us.
want Matt, where are these hot wings? I want hot wings.
Tell him about them. Tell him about it, Matt.
Yeah, Farzad basically said we need to do like a Hot Ones challenge kind of thing at the Cybertruck delivery event. So I still don't have an invite to the event, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it down or not. But either remote or in person, somehow we'll figure it out.
You want to join?
Dude, hell yeah.
Done. Who else wants to join us?
With food and wings, I'm there.
Done.
I'll join, but I'll be the first one out.
Okay.
No, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself.
You have to commit to the 10 wings. Are you going to commit to the 10 wings or no?
So who's setting this? Who's setting the standard of which kind of sauces are you putting on?
The hot ones.
Oh,
you
yeah,
watch
I'll commit
hot
to it.
ones?
Yeah, you can buy the case.
All right.
I've never
Done.
tried it.
You're about to
Do
be
or
very
don't
excited.
do. There is
If I
no
make
try.
it down there, I'm in.
Perfect.
But I only eat
Gotta
wings.
make sure
I don't eat the
that-
drumsticks.
I can't imagine
wanna
that
do it
Matt.
after
Look,
the
look at
event,
Matt.
though.
Does Matt look like he can handle hot wings?
Well, that's
That's
why I
racist.
proposed it. All right, we're like really demonetized now. It's great.
Okay. And we're past this, Herbert, judging people by the way they look.
All right, let's go ahead, Herbert. You have control again for say. If you want to, maybe we go down the list and kind of see what kind of questions we're excited about.
Yeah, we
And I'll be
just
back
we
in 2
just
seconds.
did this. We just did the Cybertruck question. The next one I thought was very important, which is the 4680 cell progress update on that. Particular progress towards performance improvements and cost savings outlined on battery day. So that's, looked like that was actually the very first question from last quarter as well. So what do you guys think about this question?
I like the idea of the question. I don't like the way it's worded because we've had the same question. Drew's just gonna go back to his, standard scripted line. I wish they were just more pointed with their questions. So
I mean, didn't they not already address this with a 20 million cell? Didn't they already give us some indicator at that point? Having said that, they still need to ask this question. I agree.
yeah, but you could have asked a question like, are the batteries only going to be used for the Cybertruck right now and then the Model Y? Or
there you go.
You guys accelerated, from 10 million to 20 million at this run rate. Do you see that being a continual linear, or do you see it more exponential? Or, I mean, like, there's just so many other questions you could ask that's more pointed rather than having such ambiguous ways for them to answer the question. That's, again, it's just the same scripted response we've had over and over. It's like when you have another Elon interview and it's the same questions every time. You're like, all right, we've heard Elon say this a million times and nobody's doing their homework. That's what this feels like to me.
Good. Okay. Anybody else? Emmett, James? Anybody else? Come on.
James's hair.
It's not that exciting a question to me. I don't know.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, I'll tell you, James. I mean, isn't the battery question the most important question that's out there?
No.
No.
Unequivocally,
is.
no.
What? Of course it is.
No.
The solar farm's the most important, Herbert.
I'll prove
It's all
you
about
wrong.
the solar farm.
You guys are so this. Come on, the battery question is the most important. Let's move on. I'm not even going to debate that. Fine. Capacity expansion plans for Berlin and Austin. Opening schedule for Gigafactory Mexico.
Boring, boneheaded questions.
Agreed.
Okay.
Oh, that was Elon.
Yeah, that was Elon. Let's go to YouTube.
Model 3 Highland to be available in the US. Did we not already get confirmation it's Q1? Did not Morgan Stanley ask this question to Tesla and they said Q1? What do you guys think?
I think they punt on this. Why would you intentionally do something that's going to potential Osborne you? Like it's.
Yeah. I'm not impressed with these questions, I gotta admit.
Okay, okay, let's put you on the spot then, Matt. What question would you ask? Impress me right now.
What like I would love to hear more information on V12 validation. I mean, with that being such a drastic architectural change, what are the requirements that they need to hit in order to feel comfortable with wide rollout, and what's the timeline that they expect that they might achieve that?
And when they do roll it out, do they still anticipate that being non-beta?
Yeah. That's way more interesting to me than, the 4680 question. And even the 4680 question, I agree with Nick. Like, word it about like so the 4680, there was a Model Y line that was using 4680s and they stopped using those. What's the criteria to start using Berlin built 4680s in a dedicated Model Y line at Austin? Like, when do they think that milestone might be hit? Like those, like the same question could be rephrased or repackaged in a way that, where you're not going to just get those same stock answers.
Yeah. There was a good question about FSD and why did the price drop from 15 to 12 when Elon's been saying that as it progresses and as we get further and further, it's going to go up, just to understand the thought behind that. I think that was a question that's going to be
head scratcher
insightful.
for me. Did anybody here have a good answer for that?
It can be.
It's a tough
I
question.
mean, it's all guesswork, but I mean, you'd imagine it. Like if the elasticity of FSD is reasonably decent, then maybe what does that equate to in a percentage drop? Like a 18% price drop or somewhere in that neighborhood results
20.
in a 20% price drop results in a increase in take rate that more than offsets that. Then that could just be a net good. So I'd hope there's some kind of data like that that's kind of backing up that claim. But I mean, in general, to me, it just seems like it's consistent with the overall kind of decrease in prices theme in general that we've seen.
When would we actually see the take rate percentage? Would we see that for this quarter, so that if they reduce this, we would see it go up from 10% in the US to some number like 12% or even higher?
I don't think they'll disclose it anytime soon.
Yeah, I think part of the cut has to do with the fact that a lot of people will finance it whenever they buy their cars, and with the interest rates going up, well, that makes FSD even more expensive than what it was. So this kind of compensates for that. I hope that's not the reason. I hope the reason is that they think V12 end-to-end is the way, and that's the reason they're now aggressively ramping up from compute. And as they do that, they want to get more data, so they want more people to buy it, so they want more videos to come in, because at this point, probably like 98% of all the video footage they have, or video that they have coming in, it's garbage, because they're looking for certain things now. And so they need a bigger fleet to get more edge cases. And I hope that's the reason, but it could easily be just because, interest rates are higher and people finance it.
Okay, let's get James on the conversation here. So James, I mean, there was 3 questions by institutional talking about FSD and specifically robotaxi, which is crazy that they're even doing it. So it's good news that they're actually bringing it up, right? But it's ridiculous that they're even talking about robotaxi. What was your thinking about those questions?
Well, I hope FSD version 12 is one step closer to robotaxi for us. That's one of the big bets that you need to believe in if you're investing in Tesla is robotaxis and autonomous robots, right? That's where the next few legs up in the S curve for Tesla's revenue growth are going to come from if they want to keep compounding at big double-digit percentages every year for decades. They've got to nail that stuff. So yeah, I would love to get updates on FSD 12 and when robotaxis are going to happen, when Tesla's going to take liability for crashes on FSD. Those sorts of questions are helpful if management will answer them, but that's always their choice, right? Management gets to you can ask them anything you want, but they get to decide how they want to answer.
James, the current stock price, what percentage of that do you think is attributable to anything other than auto?
A lot, right? If you look at just the auto industry average PE, and you put a multiple on that for next year's earnings expectation for Wall Street, you don't get $800 million, $800 billion out of that. You get a much smaller number. So yeah, there's a lot of growth priced into Tesla's stock price today, but if you believe they're going to grow into it, you believe it's a good place to invest.
But does that growth come from just auto, or does it mean that it has to come from something else? I think that's like, yes, the multiple of everything else besides Tesla in the auto industry sucks, but that's because nothing else in the auto industry is growing that's also profitable.
Yeah, Tesla has all the research and development talent. They have all the engineering talent. They've got the successful product pipeline in place today and coming with the next generation vehicle that can sell at much higher volumes. Robotaxi is going to be extremely profitable and something that there isn't a corollary to for other automakers. They don't have a similar product they can bring to market at any point soon. We're coming up on the 7th anniversary tomorrow of Tesla rolling out FSD hardware 2, replacing Mobileye hardware. How many other automakers are today selling a full suite of wraparound cameras that are upgradable over the air to full self-driving? Are there any? Like we know Waymo and Cruise are operating ride-sharing driverless networks under limited conditions, times of day and geofenced. Who else has been able to copy Tesla's approach to date, right? And how long will it take for them to catch up? And if Tesla is already this far ahead and accelerating at a rate faster than anyone else is running, is there any chance for anyone to gain on Tesla at all, let alone catch or pass Tesla? Probably not. It's the pace of innovation that matters, and Tesla innovates at a faster rate because they have the talent and because they have the culture that supports engineers.
Yeah, I mean, my very non-finance nerd evaluation of what is baked into the stock price and what isn't is that, all the growth that is baked in is just in autos. It's not baked in AI. It's not baked in any other segment other than, the market thinks that over time they will grow to be the dominant auto manufacturer in the world. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but you got to account for some. I mean, all of us think that there's going to be robotaxis and all that, right? So by nature of that, I mean, our investment dollars are in there thinking about that future.
I just don't
So-
think we're the ones controlling price right now. I think that institutions are.
Fair. All right, touche. Got me on that.
They don't believe that Tesla
Smackdown.
is going to execute
Yeah.
on all of those fronts. They don't believe that Tesla is going to pull off, autonomous robots that can replace factory workers. They don't believe that the robotaxi network will be owned by Tesla for a period of time. Tesla plus the people they license FSD to for ride sharing, right? So there's room for the stock price to grow into the trillions with Tesla firing on all cylinders, executing successfully on the full product roadmap.
I want to point out though that some good trends is happening. In Q1, we had 3 questions from institutional investors about energy. In Q2, we had 3 questions from institutional investors about AI. And then now we have 3 questions from institutional investors about robotaxi. So the messaging is getting out there, but I'm same as Hans. I think that no one is adding in any value to the stock because of these 3 at this point. But the narrative is changing, and this is where we're going. There's one question, if you want to put up the say again, will Optimus be working on Gigafactory lines next year? If so, how many would your guess be deployed from retail? One question on Optimus and retail, which my perspective, this is the big deal. There was a question in the chat about what role would Optimus play at the Cybertruck unveil. Scott, Walter, and I have been playing around with this, and I think that they'll roll out the Cybertruck, and you'll have 3 Optimus pick and place items into the bed. That's my guess of what might happen, just to show that it's capable of doing some tasks. What's your guesses, guys?
Why not 2? How come 3?
Yeah, I want to see a whole brigade come out.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see an Optimus ride the Cyber Quad up into the bed.
Whoa.
Oh,
I think
not?
we're going to
It's
see
going yoga.
an Optimus toss a ball bearing at the window.
Oh,
that's
would be
bad.
awesome.
no,
That would-
because if it doesn't break, then they'll say, "Oh, the Optimus is weak," and if it breaks, they'll say, "Oh, the Optimus is really strong." You know what I mean? Like you can't win that. You can't
Elon
win
would
that.
definitely not do that because he doesn't want to give people the idea that the robots might be throwing heavy metal objects at them.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
definitely wouldn't actually go for that. But it's a funny thought.
Okay, but how funny would it be if they put like one of those film protectors you use on your iPhone, and they put it on there, threw a ball at it, and it cracked, and they're like, "Nah, we're just kidding," and they rip it off? That would be pretty funny. To me, it would be funny. All right. Matt's like, that's stupid.
No, I think that'd be. I like to see novel things like that. So I definitely support something that's funny and the bots coming out.
Who wants to
But
make
I'm
a
ready
bet
to
with
hear
me?
about
I
accounting.
bet that in Q4 earnings call, there's going to be 3 questions by institutional investors about the bot.
Under.
3?
Oh,
Way under.
I just say it's not 3. I'm not saying over
Herbert.
under, just not 3.
Institutional investors started talking about FSD years after it was out.
no, I didn't. I think you might have missed my whole thing. I just told you that in this quarter, Q3, there's 3 questions about robotaxi and FSD from institutional investors. So what do you mean?
So you mean what you said about bot, not FST?
I said Q4 in Q4 that there will be 3 questions by institutional investors about the bot is my bet.
No.
Lower.
Okay.
Maybe Q1 or Q2, possibly, but I doubt Q4.
Okay, I've regained the bullish prize.
You've been a forever bull since the start, my friend.
They should,
Herbert.
but they won't. Yeah.
Can I just ask a confirmation real quick? Can you guys hear this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. All right.
Herbert, so you were saying what's a good question to ask? I would have loved to see a question about when's the next AI day.
I thought we'd already got confirmation about that as well, that it's going to be in Q1 2024. You want specific date?
We have confirmation of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Morgan Stanley had asked that question, and they had already announced. They answered it to Morgan Stanley.
Oh, I completely missed that one. Great. Yeah, that'd be
Gotta
stupid.
watch my shows.
Man, I watch more of you than
I know. I know. It's good.
All of you guys, I watch you guys when I'm working out, or I listen to you guys when I'm working out. So, was that TMI?
I'm honored. No, there's worse things.
You're my boys. I'm like, yeah, say it again, Herbert.
Oh man, there's a lot to go there. All right, so 1 minute left from the earnings call going live. We have it up and ready for us to listen to. We're definitely going to get a lot of, I'm going to guess a lot of stuff about Cybertruck. A lot of the guys on here also talked about a bunch of other things they're expecting on here. We reviewed, say, questions. So once they go live, we'll crank up the volume to the maximum. And then I'll also be taking notes on the side as well that we can follow along with. And I'll send out the link once that's available. So yeah, so in about a minute here, we'll sit back, we'll try to relax, and we'll listen to Tesla's earnings call. Any last thoughts before this thing kicks off?
Yeah, everybody like, subscribe, follow Farzad, and stick around because we'll be talking afterwards.
You're such a YouTuber.
I would
Very-
say,
Smash that like button, everybody.
yeah. I would say I'm gonna try to, read between the lines on Elon's demeanor, like his mood. It just seemed, I want to know where he is personally as well, because that's important for the health of the businesses he's involved in.
I will say that the biography kind of confirmed that Elon does say things just to say them, like in the earnings calls. Like he will say like big announcements because he wants to, give a good impression, that kind of thing. So, do you understand? Maybe I'm not explaining myself well, but
I think there's a high probability that he'll make some comment about if Tesla reaches it to 2027, because the world sure is not looking like a shaky place, and the light of consciousness may not make it that long. Could be talking about World War III and get some. I predict at least one kind of super dark, humanity's dying comment like that.
I think he says profound 3 different times.
I think he says they are fine with margins to zero. It's about production and moving inventory.
he's going to make a comment about bots. It's going to be the bots and the supercomputers, right?
So the music's off, but I can't hear anybody. Can you guys verify this on your end? I don't think they're on yet. I don't hear any music, but I don't hear anybody talking. Can you guys verify this on your end too in comments? You're not hearing anything, like nobody talking?
I thought we just did for a second. Oh,
no, the music.
No, it's on. Me, Kevin has it on right now. Refresh.
And they're talking?
Yeah, Elon's talking.
Why can't I hear anything? What's going on? 1 second. No audio is happening for me.
New factories.
Oh, there we go.
And we believe there's still meaningful room for improvement there. Regarding autopilot and AI, our vehicles now driven over 500 million miles with FSD beta, full self-driving beta, and that number is growing rapidly. We recently completed a 10,000 GPU cluster of H100s. We think probably bringing it into operation faster than anyone's ever brought that much compute per unit time into production, since training is the fundamental limiting factor on progress with full self-driving and vehicle autonomy. We're also seeing significant promise with FSD version 12. This is the end-to-end AI where it's photon count in, controls out. Or really you can think of it as there's just a large bit stream coming in and a tiny bit stream going out, compressing reality into a very small set of outputs, which is actually kind of how humans work. The vast majority of human data input is optics from our eyes. And so we are, like the car, photons in, controls out, with neural nets, just neural nets in the middle. It's very interesting to think about that. We will continue to invest significantly in AI development, as this is really the massive game changer. And I mean, success in this regard in the long term, I think, has the potential to make Tesla the most valuable company in the world by far. If you have fully autonomous cars at scale and fully autonomous humanoid robots that are truly useful, it's not clear what the limit is. Regarding energy storage, we deployed 4 gigawatt hours of energy of storage products in Q3. And as this business grows, the energy division is becoming our highest margin business. Energy and service now contribute over $500 million to quarterly profit. The Cybertruck, I know a lot of people are excited about the Cybertruck. I am too. I've driven the car. It's an amazing product. I do want to emphasize that there will be enormous challenges in reaching volume production with the Cybertruck, and then in making the Cybertruck cash flow positive. This is simply normal for when you've got a product with a lot of new technology, or any new vehicle, brand new vehicle program, but especially one that is as different and advanced as the Cybertruck. You will have problems proportionate to how many new things you're trying to solve at scale. So I just want to emphasize that while I think this is potentially our best product ever, and I think it is our best product ever, it is going to require immense work to reach volume production and be cash flow positive at a price that people can afford. Often people do not understand what is truly hard. That's why I say prototypes are easy, production is hard. People think it's the idea, or you make a prototype, you design a car, and it's not as though designing a car is that just anyone can do it. It does require taste. It does require effort to design a prototype. But the difficulty of going from a prototype to volume production is like 10,000% harder to get to volume production than to make the prototype in the first place. And then it is even harder than that to reach positive cash flow. That is why there have not been new car startups that have been successful for 100 years, apart from Tesla. So, I just want to temper expectations for Cybertruck. It's a great product, but financially, it will take, I don't know, a year to 18 months before it is a significant positive cash flow contributor. I wish there was some way for that to be different, but that's my best guess. So really the demand is off the charts. We have over
As far as that, we lost audio.
positive cash flow.
Good.
And we continue to target, expect to have around 1.8 million vehicle deliveries, as stated earlier this year. The Tesla AI team is, I think, one of the world's best, and I think it is actually by far the world's best when it comes to real-world AI. I'll say that again. Tesla has the best real-world AI team on Earth, period. And it's getting better. And lastly, I wanted to thank all of our employees who are making a lot of extra effort during uncertain times. Thank you very much for your hard work and the impact that you're making.
Thank you very much, Elon. And our CFO, Vaibhav, had some opening remarks as well.
Thanks, Martin.
Our vehicle deliveries in Q3 outpaced production, and we had yet another record quarter of profitability in our energy business. Congratulations to the Tesla team for their continued focus on operational excellence as we navigate through a period of economic uncertainty, higher interest rates, and shifting consumer sentiment. As Elon mentioned, our Q3 operational and financial performance was impacted by planned downtimes for our factory upgrades. This was necessary to allow for further factory improvements and production rate increases. Despite such factory shutdowns, our cost per vehicle decreased to approximately $37,500. We saw sequential decreases in material costs and freight. Reducing the cost of our vehicles is our top priority. On the operating expenses front, R&D expenses continue to rise due to Cybertruck prototype builds and pilot production testing, combined with spend on AI technologies like full self-driving, Optimus, and JUJU. We have and will continue to make investments in these areas, and hence our capital expenditure and R&D will continue to grow in the near term. However, our focus is to continue making investments through positive cash flow from operations. This year itself, we have generated operating cash flows of approximately $8.9 billion and free cash flows of approximately $2.3 billion. Our other businesses are becoming more prominent on a standalone basis, with energy business leading the charge primarily from the growth in megabyte deployments. Our services and other businesses on a year-on-year basis also continue to show positive momentum as we benefit from our growing fleet. As regards our pricing strategy, in addition to what we have shared before, I want to elaborate that most car buying happens with one or other form of financing, and hence we also view pricing in terms of monthly costs for the customer. And therefore, as interest costs in the US have risen substantially, it has required us to adjust the price of our vehicles to keep the monthly cost in parity. We've tried to offset such adjustments via our focus on reducing costs. However, there is an inherent lag in cost reductions, which in turn impacts margins. To that extent, we recently announced a partner vehicle leasing program in the US, whereby you can get a standard range Model Y for as low as $399 a month. In conclusion, as we navigate through a challenging economic environment, we're focused on reducing costs, maximizing delivery volumes, and continuing making investments in the future, in particular AI and other next-generation platforms. We believe this strategy positions us well for the long term. Once again, I would like to thank the Tesla team for their efforts in the last quarter.
Thank you very much. And now let's go to investor questions. The first investor question comes from Craig. How many Cybertruck deliveries do you anticipate for 2024?
It's difficult to make an accurate guess at this point. Going back to what I said earlier, that the ramp is going to be extremely difficult. Like I said, there's no way around that. If you try to make, if we just try to do some copycat vehicle design, of which there are literally 200 models that are slight variations on a theme in the combustion engine world, just distinctions without a difference, then it's really not that hard. But if you want to do something radical and innovative and something really special like the Cybertruck, it is extremely difficult because there's nothing to copy. You have to invent not just the car, but the way to make the car. So the more uncharted the territory, the less predictable the outcome. Now, I can say that if you say, well, where will things end up? I think we'll end up with roughly 250,000 Cybertrucks a year. But I don't think we're going to reach that output rate next year. I think we'll probably reach it sometime in 2025. That's my best guess.
Thank you. The second question is, can you provide a progress update on the 4680 cell, particularly progress towards performance improvements and cost savings outlined on Battery Day? Thank you.
Sure thing, Martin. 4680 cell production in Texas increased 40% quarter over quarter. Congrats to the Texas team for producing their 20 million cell off of line 1. Texas is now our primary 4680 facility. We're heavily focused on quality. Scrap is down 40% quarter over quarter. With the increased volume and yield improvements, cell costs consistently improved month over month within the quarter, although we have a lot more work to do to achieve our steady state goals. And that is our priority. The Cybertruck cell with 10% higher energy than our Model Y cell started production on line 2 in Texas. This quarter, we convert to building 100% Cybertruck cells to simplify and focus the factory as we ramp all 4 lines in phase 1 over the next 3 quarters. Phase 2 of the Texas 4680 facility is currently under construction. The additional 4 lines incorporate further capital efficiencies over phase 1, and our target is for them to start producing in late 2024. Lastly, in Cato, we're retooling to enable large-scale pilot runs of our next-generation cell designs. Cato's long-term goal is to be the launch pad for new cells, 1 generation ahead of our mass production facilities, enabling faster iteration and smoother ramp-ups of new designs.
Thank you. The next question from institutional investors, could you please provide an update on capacity expansion plans for companies' factories in Berlin and Austin, and the opening schedule of Gigafactory in Mexico?
Berlin and Austin factory, the current priority is actually maximize the output from our existing lines by laser focus on efficiency improvements. As always, maintaining a high quality and reducing per unit cost will be as critical as growing production volume. For Mexico, we're working on infrastructure and factory design in parallel with the engineering development of the new production that will be manufactured there. That's all I can share for that.
Yeah, in Mexico, we're laying the groundwork to begin construction and doing all the long lead items. But I think we want to just get a sense for what the global economy is like before we go full tilt on the Mexico factory. I'm worried about the high interest rate environment that we're in. I just can't emphasize this enough that for the vast majority of people, buying a car is about the monthly payment. And as interest rates rise, the proportion of that monthly payment that is interest increases naturally. So that's if interest rates remain high, or if they go even higher, it's that much harder for people to buy the car. They simply cannot afford it. And we are tracking, I believe, at this point for Model Y to be the best-selling car on Earth, but not just in revenue, but in unit volume. If you compare that to the other vehicles that are, number 2 and number 3 and whatnot, they cost much less than our car. So, we're just hitting law of large numbers situations here. I know people want us to advertise, and we are advertising. I think there is something to be gained on the advertising front. I don't think it's nothing. But informing people of a car that is great that they cannot afford doesn't really help. So that is really the thing that must be solved, is to make the car affordable, or the average person cannot buy it for any amount of money, or they simply can't afford it. They can't afford it. So this is a big deal.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is, when do you expect Model 3 Highland to be available in the US? I just wanted to address that, unfortunately, we don't answer product-related questions and timings on earnings calls, so let's go to the next one. Current sell-side consensus assumes that Tesla will deliver 2.3 million vehicles in 2024, representing 28% growth versus 2023 guidance. Is this growth rate achievable without any mass market launches in 2024? And when does Tesla expect to return to its 50% long-term CAGR?
Thanks for the question. When we look at 2024, there are a lot of moving pieces. Elon just talked about what is happening in the macroeconomic environment. So we're focused on growing our volumes in a very cost-efficient manner and are carefully reviewing all our options, and we'll be able to provide a much more meaningful update at our next earnings call.
Yeah, I mean, the risk of stating the obvious, it's not possible to have a compound growth rate of 50% forever, or you will exceed the mass of the known universe. But I think we will grow very rapidly and much faster than any other car company on Earth by far.
Thank you. Next question is, do you have an approximate timeline in mind for the robotaxi, driven or non-driven? What excites you most about how this project is progressing?
Well, the robotaxi is like necessarily non-driven. I guess I'm very excited about our progress with autonomy. The end-to-end, nothing but nets, self-driving software is amazing. I drives me all around Austin with no interventions. So, you know, it's clearly the right move. You know, so it's really pretty amazing. And also that same software and approach will enable Optimus to do useful things, and enable Optimus to learn how to do things simply by looking. So, you know, extremely exciting in the long term. As I mentioned before, you know, given that economic output is the number of people times productivity, if you no longer have a constraint on people, effectively you've got a humanoid robot that can do as much as you'd like. Your economy is quasi infinite, or infinite for all intents and purposes. So, and I don't think anyone's going to do it better than Tesla, not by a long shot. Yeah, Boston Dynamics is impressive, but their robot lacks a brain. They're like the Wizard of Oz or whatever. Yeah, lacks a brain. And then you also need to be able to design the humanoid robot, you know, in such a way that it can be mass manufactured. And then at some point, the robots will manufacture the robots. Now, obviously, we need to make sure that there's a good place for humans in that future, and we do not create some variant of the Terminator outcome. So we're going to put a lot of effort into localized control of the humanoid robot. So you know, basically anyone will be able to shut it off locally, and you can't change that even if you. With like a software update, you can't change that. It has to be hard coded.
Thank you. The next question is, why was the price dropped on FSD if it is getting better and robotaxi is expected so soon?
Well, we just wanted to make it more affordable, so more people could try it. Yeah, I think over time the price of FSD will increase proportionate to its value. So I would regard the current price as a kind of a temporary low.
Thank you. The next question is again on FSD. Mercedes is accepting legal liability for when its level 3 autonomous driving system Drive Pilot is active. Is Tesla planning to accept legal liability for FSD? And if so, when?
Well, there's a lot of people that assume we have legal liability, judging by the lawsuits. We're certainly not being let off the hook on that front, whether we would like to or wouldn't like to. So,
I mean, I think it's important to remember for everyone that Mercedes' system is limited to a few roads in Nevada and some certain cities in California. It doesn't work in the snow or the fog. It must have a lead car, marked lanes, only 40 miles per hour. Our system is meant to be holistic and drive in any conditions, so we obviously have a much more capable approach, but you know, with those kind of limitations, really not very useful. I think some people understand the profundity of the Tesla AI system. Most people, but very, very few. It's basically baby AGI. It has to understand reality in order to drive. Baby AGI.
Thank you. The next question on Optimus. Will Optimus be working on Gigafactory lines next year? If so, how many would you guess will be deployed?
I think at this point we are not ready to discuss details of the Optimus program, but we will provide periodic updates online. So as you can see, where Optimus a year ago could barely walk, and now it can do yoga. So a few years from now, it can probably do ballet.
Sounds good. And the last question from investors is, neural net path planning represents a significant advance in capability and safety for FSD. What steps is Tesla taking to make this technology available outside the US?
Yeah, our approach has been to try to get it, like the more places we try to make it work, the harder the problem is. So the reason we don't do it in all countries simultaneously is that it would take much longer to make it work anywhere at all. So that's why it's currently just North America. And also for most parts of the world, you have to get approval before deploying things. Whereas in the US, you can deploy things at risk, or at least you take liability for what you deploy. So it's whereas most countries require some sort of extensive approval program. So we only want to go through that extensive approval program when we think it's kind of ready for prime time in that country. I apologize that it's not in those countries, but we keep finding ways to make it better, and it needs to drive such that it exceeds the even unsupervised, significantly exceeds the probability of injury of a human. Or significantly better. It's a lower probability of injury than a human by far. I think we're tracking to that point very quickly. Obviously, in the past, I've been overly optimistic about this. The reason I've been overly optimistic is that the progress tends to sort of look like a log curve, which is that you have kind of rapid initial improvements, and that if you were to extrapolate that sort of rapid, fairly linear rate of improvement, you get to self-driving quite quickly, but then the rate of improvement curves over logarithmically and starts to asymptote. That's now happened several times. I would characterize our progress in real-world AI as a series of stacked log curves. I think that is also true in other parts of AI, like LLMs and whatnot. Series of stacked log curves. Each log curve gets higher than the last one. So if you keep stacking them, keep stacking logs, eventually you get to FSD.
Thank you. Let's now go to analyst questions. The first question comes from Will Stein from Truist. Will, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks so much for taking my question, and thanks for all the updates today. We learned earlier in the call, it sounds like you don't think the truck will ramp to significant volume until its third year of production. Should we have a similar anticipation for the ramp of the next gen platform, or is there any reason that we should be maybe more optimistic or pessimistic about the ramp profile there? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, it's not really the third year of production. It's kind of like the 18th month of production is roughly my guess. So it's just that it'll happen is that it starts this year, spans next year, and gets to 2025. So technically there are 3 calendar years in there, but there's actually only 18 months, not 3 years. I would be very disappointed if it took us, and that would be shocking if it took us 3 years. But 18 months from initial deliveries to reach volume and reach prosperity with an immense, I can't tell you how much the blood, sweat, and tears level required to achieve that is just staggering. I've been through it many times. And then here we go again.
Similar path for the next gen platform?
I mean, there's like unique complexity to Cybertruck.
Yeah. I mean, Cybertruck is. Yeah, I mean, we dug our own grave with Cybertruck. You know, nobody. In general, I find nobody digs their grave better than themselves, and so, it is. Cybertruck is one of those special products that comes along only once in a long while. And special products that come along once in a long while are just incredibly difficult to bring to market, to reach volume, to be prosperous. It's fundamental to the nature of the newness. So now the sort of high volume, low cost, smaller vehicle is actually much more conventional.
In terms of like the technologies we're putting into it, we didn't have to invent how to bend full hard stainless steel or have mega 9,000 ton castings or the largest hot stamping in the world or new high voltage.
I missed. Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
What did you do, Farzad?
1 second, guys.
Quite a fast RAM, units per minute level that is unheard of in the auto industry.
Yeah, I mean, the simplification makes it easier to automate. It also makes it lower cost. Yeah, like it's intrinsically lower cost.
Yeah. Let's be clear, it'll be cool, but it's utilitarian. It's not meant to be, fill you with, awe and magic. It's to get you from A to B. It'll be still beautiful, but it's utilitarian. It's a utility.
That's not 14 inches of travel under suspension.
Yeah, as an example. Yeah. So, I mean, the Cybertruck has a lot of bells and whistles.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go to Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research.
Hey, can you hear me fine? Yes?
Yes.
Hey, I have first a follow-up question on FSD and pricing and adoption. So I agree with you that as FSD improves, we should see its value increasing. But I guess the ultimate value of FSD, which is to be able to handle a robo-taxi, is not going to necessarily interest everybody, and you have a bit of a degraded version that would be like a chauffeur service where the car drives by itself, but you still have to be in the car and around, and then there is like the hands-on, eyes-on version of the service. And I guess, there should be like much lower cost, lower feature kind of variant of the service that could have a very large penetration on your install base, and more expensive one that would remain at a lower penetration level. So I'm just wondering if you're taking that. And last but not least, like the simplest version of FSD are available and are going to work from a technical perspective probably before like the ultimate robotaxi version can work, if ever. And so I'm wondering how you take that into account in how you're thinking like the financial contribution of FSD over time, and whether you could evolve your pricing along that kind of tiers to increase adoption.
Yeah, I mean, a fully autonomous vehicle, I think here sort of the economics of a fully autonomous vehicle are truly astounding in a positive way. When you look at passenger vehicles today, they only get about 10 to 12 hours of usage per week. That's, if you drive an hour and a half a day on average, that's roughly 10 hours a week out of 168 hours. And then there's also, you got to have parking and insurance. You got to take care of the car. It's like there's a lot of overhead. So, I mean, yeah, it's like the economics of the system are just insanely positive. If given that the car, like all of the cars we're making and have made for a while, we believe are capable of full autonomy. So then if you're able to, say, increase the utility of that car by a factor of 5, which still only means that you're being used for maybe 50 hours a week out of 168. So you're still assuming that still assumes less than a third of the hours of the week is doing something useful. You've increased the value of that by 5, but it still costs the same. Like you have something, then we're a hardware company with software margins.
Pierre, do you have a follow-up? Yes, I'd have actually a follow-up on a different topic for you, if that's okay. It's about like your gross margin in the quarter. Could you give us a sense of like in how the gross margin evolved sequentially? How much was the impact of idle costs? How much was like the sequential benefit, I imagine, of production ramping at Berlin and Austin? And then I saw like this massive jump in energy storage, very strong positive surprise. So if you can give us the background on that and tell us, how we should think about that gross margin going forward.
Okay, thanks for that question. So in terms of, you have a few different aspects of your question. So if I just look at from Q3 perspective, obviously factory idle time had an impact. It did impact by, I won't give you the exact percentage, but it had a decent impact for the quarter. And, when you look at the other pieces which we're trying to do, we did see certain of our other factories ramping up pretty well, right? And they actually contributed pretty well to the margin for this quarter. In fact, one of the factories came pretty close to, in terms of per unit costs, to where we are for one of our other established factory, which is Fremont. So that was a positive in the quarter. And when it comes to energy margins, Megapack deployment was the key driver there. And that product has done well. I mean, on the cost curve also, we've been able to do a lot there. But I do want to caution that, Megapack deployments are a bit lumpy. So yes, we had a great quarter this period, but depending upon where we are trying to deploy that product, in in different markets, you would see periods wherein there would be downward pressure on deployment because of us trying to get the product to the exact place where
product in transit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Rod Lash from Wolf Research. Rod, feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks. Really nice to see the rate of vehicle cost improvement despite the downtime that you took. You've taken now about $2,000 out of the average vehicle cost over the past year. Can you give us maybe a sense of the rate of improvement that you see from the changes that you alluded to, the factory changes you alluded to? Is there a way maybe to convey the speed of improvement on your existing product from here? And then related to that, can you share the timing of your next gen, the lower priced product that you talked about earlier this year?
Yeah, so just in terms of product margins, there are lots of puts and takes when you look into this. You know, there are certain things which we control, and there are certain things which we don't control. You know, we expect that we'll get some benefits from our cost reduction efforts, which are all underway. But on the other hand, we just finished our factory upgrades late in Q3. Some of these factories are still in the early ramp phase in Q4. We're still not up to where we want those factories to be, so they'll impact in the near term. Plus, like Elon mentioned, we're going to be ramping Cybertruck, which is going to be another headwind which we'll be dealing with. On top of all the, you know, there's overall uncertainty in the macroeconomic environment, which even makes it harder to predict precisely as to where we land. But yes, this is something which, you know, it's an evolving thing which we're observing every day and reacting to it on a daily basis.
I would just say that on the cost reduction efforts, like we are unflagging in our pursuit of additional cost downs for 2024. We do have a good pipeline of them and work on both the engineering side and the factory operation side. And you know, our intention is to like maintain or exceed the trend that you saw. We're trying as hard as we possibly can.
The timing of the next gen product, can you share that?
Not at this time.
Okay. And just as a follow-up, obviously price is also a driver of demand, but that's obviously not happening in a vacuum. And you mentioned that, I think you mentioned it at some point during this call that you're also maybe hitting the law of large numbers on some of your products. Can you just share how you're thinking about price elasticity just at this point and in this macro environment? And any thoughts along those lines?
I think that there's very significant price elasticity. I mean, to be totally frank, if our car costs the same as a RAV4, nobody would buy a RAV4. Or at least they're very unlikely to. It's worth noting that a lot of these incentives, like the tax credit and whatnot, but they're actually very difficult for the average person to access because most people do not have 10 grand, or even $7,500 burning a hole in their bank account. Large number of people are living paycheck to paycheck and with a lot of debt. They've got credit card debt, mortgage debt. So yeah, that's reality for most people. It's sometimes difficult for people who are high income earners, and I'd say high would be like someone who's earning over $200,000 a year, to understand what life is like for someone who is earning $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 a year, which is most people. So that, like, for a lot of people, like these tax credits just they can't front $7,500 for 18 months or even 6 months to get for the tax credit, and they actually don't. It's okay to even have that. Then I'm $7,500 in taxes. So, it's really just the vast majority of people is how much money do they have to pay immediately and how much per month. That's it. And you can stop right there. and our car is still much more expensive than a RAV4 when you look at it that way.
Yeah, one other thing which I'll add, when you look at, car buying in general, we're trying to get to the next set of EV adapters. And
Not an EV adapter, just
next.
Who wants a great car?
Exactly.
It's not sometimes you get these honestly, I'd say it's like somewhat correlates with the why doesn't everyone work from home crowd. I'm like, this is like some real Marie Antoinette vibes from people that say, why does everyone work from home? Like, what about all the people that have to come to the factory and fill the cars? What about all the people that have to go to the restaurant and make your food and deliver your food? It's like, what are you talking about? How detached from reality does the work from home crowd have to be? While they take advantage of all those who cannot work from home. So, you have to say, like, why did I sleep in the factory so many times? Because it mattered. So I just can't emphasize how important cost is. It's not an optional thing for most people. It is a necessary thing. We have to make our cars more affordable so people can buy it. And I keep harping on this interest thing, but it just raises the cost of the car. We're looking at an internal analysis, which we think is more or less on track. That when you look at the cost or the price reductions we've made in, say, the Model Y, and you compare that to how much people's monthly payment has risen due to interest rates, the price of the Model Y is almost unchanged.
If you factor in the change in the interest rates.
Yes, which is that's what I'm trying to say. The thing that matters is the monthly pay. It's how much money do they have to put down, and do they literally have that in their bank account, or will it check bounce? And then what is the monthly payment? And it doesn't matter if that monthly payment is principal, interest, or whatever. It's just a number, and that number has to not cause their bank account to go negative. That's it. So, going from near zero interest rates to the current very high interest rates, the actual monthly payment is basically the same. It's just a bunch more of it is going to interest. And there are some incremental challenges beyond that, which is the difficulty of getting credit at all has increased. And so the number of people who simply cannot get credit, period. Even if they've got a job and everything's solid, the banks are, a little gun shy on handing out credit, given that a bunch of them kicked the bucket earlier this year.
Yeah, there's also just fewer options. Even if they want to hand out credit, there's fewer banks to go to.
It's like, does your bank still exist?
Yeah.
Well, if your bank does not exist, you have to establish a relationship with a new bank. So a lot of regional banks are, died, and even Credit Suisse. Geez, that was a shocker. Got a 160-year-old-ish Swiss institution that doesn't exist anymore. That's mind-blowing. And I think there's still quite a few shoes to drop on the bad credit situation. Commercial real estate obviously is in terrible shape. Credit card debt has been rising significantly. The credit card interest rates are usurious. It's over 20% interest rates, meaning which over time it becomes extremely punishing. Because if somebody's paying 20% interest on their credit cards, it means they cannot pay them off. Now, if you cannot pay them off and you're still accruing interest at 20%, that's headed to a bad place.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question from George from Canaccord.
Thank you for taking my question. Just to focus on the cost per vehicle, coming down in future quarters, as you discussed in your written remarks. I'm curious as to what the levers of that could be. Is it more scale, more factory utilization? Is it material cost reductions? Is it things like gigacasting? I mean, could you just kind of give us some data points to give us confidence that that's going to come down over time? And if I can sneak one in, please. There are press reports, and I know how perilous it is to believe some of these, but they say that you've included radar as an option in some Model Ys in China, and I'm just here to ask if that's true, and if so, why? Thank you.
We've not included radar. We have radar as a Tesla designed radar as an experiment in the Model S and X. That's it. We'll see whether that experiment is worth it. But there are no plans to integrate radar into 3 and Y. Just as humans drive well, and in fact, an excellent human driver can drive with amazing safety simply with their eyes. The car will far exceed the average human safety just with vision, far. Because I mean, the car is looking in all directions at once, and we don't have eyes in the back of our head. So, the computer never gets tired and never gets distracted, get drunk, hopefully. So radar is, it's not, what really matters is how much does it affect the probability of an accident. And in order for the radar to be effective, you have to be able to do radar-only braking. Or you have to do actions that are radar-only. Otherwise, you get this disambiguation problem between vision and radar. That's why we actually turned off the radar in cars historically that we had. All 3 and Y used to have radar, but we turned it off because the radar actually generated more noise than signal. Now, the Tesla designed radar is a high-resolution radar that has some potential to be useful, but the jury is still very much out on whether that is in fact the case.
On the cost question, I guess from the vehicle side, as Drew mentioned earlier, we are always trying to engineer our products to be cheaper to make and more efficient to make. That comes obviously on the engineering side as we come up with new innovations, but as well on the supply chain side with our partners, we work with them to automate some of their lines, remove their bottlenecks and their high costs as well. On the logistics side, getting parts to the factory, it's not like a one thing that you have to attack cost everywhere, and we do it ruthlessly at all times.
Operations efficiency, all of the above.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a whole laundry list of things which we are chasing. We internally call it the cost attack, where we're literally going line by line and saying, how can we make it better? And it's a grind.
It's a grind.
It's time.
It's a game of pennies. It's like Game of Thrones, but pennies. First approximation, if you've got a $40,000 car and roughly 10,000 items in that car, that means each thing on average costs $4. So in order to get the cost down, say by 10%, you have to get 40 cents out of each part on average. It is a game of pennies.
We play it willingly.
We play it.
Yeah, we've done it many times. Even something as simple as like a sticker. Like there's too many stickers internally in the car that nobody ever sees. There's something as simple as a QR code. You might think, well, putting a QR code on a part, why not just put them on there? It's like, well, are we actually going to use that QR code?
Costs a penny.
Yeah, exactly. And then inevitably, sometimes the QR code doesn't go on properly, or you can't read it properly, and then it stops the line.
Costs more than a penny.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's chipping away with it. I mean, it does feel like digging a tunnel with a spoon at times.
Very much escaping prison.
Yeah.
In on top of it, like we said, we did some factory upgrades, so we expect volume to go up. That would also bring some savings from higher production. But then on the flip side, we're going to be ramping a new product like Cybertruck, which we talked about. So yeah, so those are the real puts and takes which we are working for.
Yeah, but there's not like some accidentally, some brick of gold that we shot and left in the car, unfortunately. And it's, we're trying to be very rigorous about improving the quality and capability of the car, because it's like any fool can reduce the cost of a car by making it worse, and just deleting functionality and capability, and that's how I'm cool. That sort of any fool. It's like if you want to lose weight and you say, well, I need to lose 15 pounds right away. Well, you could chop your arm off, but then you're sitting there with one arm, and you're still fat. so sort of like, yeah, you gotta work at it. Yeah, you actually have to eat less food and work out. That's the actual way. And doctor's advice. Yeah, it's not super fun because food is delicious, and I personally am not but I don't love working out. I know some people do. I wish I did, but I don't. Unless moving the mouse consists of working out, in which case I love moving the mouse.
All right, let's go to Colin Langham from Wells Fargo. Colin, can you unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry about that. You hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks for taking my question. You said in the commentary that you're not going full tilt on the plant in Mexico until there's signs that the economy is strong. Can you continue at a 50% CAGR without that plant? And where would that come from? And any color on what you mean sort of not going full tilt? Could that plant get delayed indefinitely? Or what are we kind of talking about?
No, we're definitely making the factory in Mexico. We feel very good about that. We put a lot of effort into looking at different locations, and we feel very good about that location. And we are going to build a factory there, and it's going to be great. The question is really just one of timing, and there's going to be a broken record on the interest front. It's just interest rates have to come down. Like if interest rates keep rising, you just fundamentally reduce affordability. It is just the same as increasing the price of the car. So I just don't have visibility into. If you can tell me what the interest rates are, I can tell you when we should build the factory. We're going to build it, and I mean I think we'll start the initial phases of construction next year. But I am still somewhat scarred by 2009 when General Motors and Chrysler went bankrupt. So, well, that's now 14 years ago. It's that is seared into my mind with a branding iron. Because Tesla was just hanging on by a thread during that entire time, and and we closed our financing round in 2008 at 6 p.m. December 24th, Christmas Eve. And if we had not closed that financing round, we would have bounced payroll 2 days after Christmas. So we actually closed that round on the last hour of the last day that it was possible. Stressful, to say the least. And then barely made it through 2009. So I'm like, I want to just, I don't want to be going at top speed into uncertainty. A lot of wars going on in the world, obviously, as well.
And we have room here, like in Giga, Texas. You said we still have room in this building. It's not full with Cybertruck and Model Y, and there's plenty of growth opportunities still to have inside the building where our team already is.
We also have 2,000 acres here.
So there's also a bunch more.
We're actually only occupying a tiny corner of the land that we have. So we could technically do all the scaling necessary just here. So, I mean, personnel is our biggest challenge in that the greater Austin area only has, generously, the greater Austin area only has 2 million people. So people are moving here and they're willing to move here, but there is somewhat of a housing crisis. They got to live somewhere. So, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I guess
so I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious. I'm not saying things will be bad. I'm just saying they might be, and I think like Tesla is an incredibly capable ship, but it is. But if we need to make sure, like, if the macroeconomic conditions are stormy, even if the best ship is still going to have tough times. The weaker ships will sink. We're not going to sink, but even a great ship in a storm has challenges. Now that storm will apply to everyone, not just us, and not just the auto industry. It'll apply to everyone, I think. So apart from necessary sort of staples like food and stuff, but so I don't know. If interest rates start coming down, we will accelerate.
All right.
If anybody's got any guesses on this, I'd love to be less wrong. And I apologize if I'm perhaps more paranoid than I should be, because that might also be the case, because I have PTSD from 2009, big time. And in 2017 through 19 were not picnic either. That was very, very tough going. So, the auto industry is also somewhat cyclic. It's because people tend to hesitate to buy a new car, and if there's uncertainty in the economy. So it's car companies do very well in good economic times, and they don't do as well in tough economic times. So it's just whereas if somebody's selling bread, then I think that people still need to have bread. Yeah, yeah, you need bread. You need food all the time, but new car you don't have to have bread cement.
Especially if there are wars going on, and then that impacts your sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, if people are reading about wars all over the world, if this buying a new car tends to not be front of mind.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thank you very much for all of your good questions, and we'll see you again in 3 months. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, that was a cheery ending to a earnings call. First reactions. I mean, yeah.
I'm hearing echo or some sort of.
Oh, sorry.
It's gone.
Sound like a car lift over there.
That's my desk. Look, my microphone goes up and down. See that? I have a stand
back.
this way.
You mean like this?
Oh, so fancy.
Except mine's quiet.
Oh, you're so cool. Go ahead, Herbert.
Oh, whoa, boy! I think that was a very, very sobering call. I was predicting that he was going to be much more optimistic about the future. He did not say anything that was very optimistic at all. He was very, very straightforward about the challenges for the Cybertruck. That was new news about the gig in Mexico, that they actually were the ones that are delaying. Some people had, kind of thought that might be the case. Delaying the groundwork. But it was great that they did say that if they needed to, they could do it in Giga Texas. So I don't think it's a given that they're not going to hit their 50% CAGR growth in 2024. But they certainly are waiting it out to see what happens with the economy. Tremendously ridiculous amount of time spent on the economy. But he mentioned that he had PTSD regarding that. So, I mean, boy, and for the first time, they refused to answer a number of questions, just like we predicted. They wouldn't answer the Model 3 Highland. So other than that, I mean, I think that it was just very sobering. I mean, they just basically said, run rate for everything will be delayed. So that's my first reaction.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, it's very reminiscent of some of the periods during 2017, 2018, some of the vibes of like Elon clearly sounded down. He clearly sounded like something's happening, something's going on. And I think if I were to read between the lines, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think he has legitimate concerns about the broader macroeconomic environment. I think that really shone through very, very loudly in this call. I think what I think is going through his head is that they're trying their best to lower costs and make their cars as affordable as they can be right now. But it seems like there might be a wall there because of where interest rates are, and it's outside of their hand. And it's the first time I've heard Elon say, we're not going to go as fast as we can. That's weird to hear from Tesla. We're not going to go as fast as we can, which means that they're heavily dependent on the macroeconomic conditions, it seems like. Now, Elon, like he said, I might be a little bit too pessimistic or too conservative here. There might be something else going on. But one needs to think that there's a level of data they have out there that's speaking to this, where they're afraid to push any harder than they're at right now. And what's interesting about the Mexico thing is like the Mexico thing would have solved the affordability problem in a way, because now they're coming out with the compact car, and that's going to lower costs dramatically to the end consumer. Yeah, you'll be selling a compact car for higher monthly payments because of a higher interest rate, but that cost of that car is going to be lower than a Model Y or a Model 3 one would think to the end consumer, right? So it would still increase the ability for them to sell it. Now they've shifted that production and they're going to start it in Texas, which is great. So maybe part of the plan is saying, hey, for the next couple of years, we're unsure if having Mexico and Austin going full tilt will be a wise decision. We'll start with Austin first with compact. And then once we're confident about interest rates, we'll go ahead. But I will tell you one thing that for sure will come out of this call negatively, that's I think a lot of people are going to run with, is that, hey, this signals that EVs are not as popular as we thought they were. I bet you that's going to be one of the headlines that comes out of this. They're going to misconstrue what was said on this call into, well, EVs, yeah, we told you EVs aren't going to be that popular. Clearly, you see why this is. Elon's afraid that demand's not going to be there because of the macroeconomic conditions. And then they'd be like, hey, look, the macro says no recession. And Ford and GM have sold more cars this year than last year, if you compare them, completely missing the whole point that there's a ton of inventory on dealership lots. Oh, and by the way, they're striking. So, yeah. That's sort of my broad takeaway, but I have other thoughts too. But let's go around the horn. Let's go around. So go Hans, and then Nick, and then James.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was also just Elon's tone, and he definitely seems like he's down. And he kept all the comments today kind of focused on Tesla, but I can't help but wonder, other than there were, brief mentions of what's going on with Israel and Palestine, or allusions to that, just with increased wars. And I was trying to think through, Elon has been relatively quiet on X recently. And so the fact that he's keeping his mouth more shut on Israel Palestine than we would kind of normally expect him to, and then that matched with his tone today, makes me wonder if that is hitting him particularly close to home, and if that is one of the things that's driving some of his just reflective kind of melancholy mood. And then that will also color his analysis of just the macro environment and geopolitics, and where Tesla's positioned in a time of what's looking to be increasing uncertainty, increasing amounts of risk, increasing amounts of instability. So I think that's from a macro perspective and the tone, the things that jumped out at me. I would say that I was a little bit surprised we didn't get anything on Optimus. They kind of punted pretty much everything related to that. That was a little bit of a disappointment for me. Then one of the other things that really stood out to me was, Pierre basically asked a question that I've had in my mind for a long time, and that's, if we can't reach full robotaxi future in the near future, but we've got software in FSD that's incredibly valuable, and right now the pricing is set up to keep people out of the system more so than to maximize users and maximize revenue. Is that something that they'll play with? Will they provide different levels of functionality, different options at varying price points, and try and get more people to use the system in some way that they are willing to use it, and actually, generate some SaaS revenue off of that? And I liked just to hear that Elon's not ready to think about that as a possibility yet. He's all in on, we're pushing towards full robotaxi. And regardless of where they end up, that is the right tone to hear from management at this point in time, that they think that they're going to achieve this. They think they're going to solve it, and they're continuing to push forward, all ahead. So that was good. And then I think those were the main things that I can add value to on today. I think some of the other things that I took away probably would be better to be commented on by others here.
Nick, go for it.
Yeah, just two things, and then I'll give to James, and then we can just have a conversation about all the different topics. We should just go down your list, far as because I'm sure there's a lot we're forgetting. But just real quick to touch on the FSD part there. I think that's the right move for Tesla and for Elon, and to not have some type of intermediate or lesser version, because if you've been in the software long enough, you notice that if you have some type of crutch like that, it tends to give the impression of, well, we're making more money on it, whatever, it's fine. We don't have this imperative as strong as we did before. And so I think Elon sees that as kind of, yeah, it would produce more revenue, more people could use it, but it would also kind of be a drag to the engineering teams. As far as, this is why before, hey, Alexandra, when we were talking, I was saying, like, we have to take a step back and look at the macro. In spite of everything, and I get this is quarter to quarter, and we're looking at this from an earnings perspective and a quarterly perspective, everything, honestly, on the earnings report was pretty good in spite of everything. And I don't think you can look at it in a vacuum. I mean, these interest rate hikes, I'm saying this like on my channel all the time, like, just forget the car market, right? Because the car market is just as much impacted. But look at a house. $1 million house 2 years ago would have cost you about $4,200 a month. Now it costs you $7,500 a month. That's $1 million house. Take that and apply that to automobiles and people. Most people don't make enough money. It doesn't matter how much advertisement you put out there. It's irrelevant. And the $7,500 tax credit, he brought up a good point. A lot of people can't even benefit from that, right? So when you look in a vacuum, I think, yeah, it's like, oh, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. But I think, I don't know. I think it's people talking from, to take Elon's quote from like an ivory tower, and people don't have enough people around their lives that are making $50,000, $40,000, $60,000 a year. Because I talk to those people, I have friends who make that much money, and they're like, yeah, cool. Even if it is $42,000, $37,000, I still can't afford a brand new car. It's ridiculous. So I think that's the ground truth. I think people are also worried about the economy. Like, it's more than just advertising or knowledge out there. Like, we are potentially on the precipice of a World War III and the next cycle downturn if we're not in it already and we're just not aware of it, which tends to happen. So I think people are being cautious. People are still scarred from 08, 09. And obviously Elon is too, right? It's like, I think we underplay that way too much in this community. And it's probably because, we're all fortunate enough to, be in a higher level echelon than the vast majority of people. And we're very fortunate for that. But look, the ground truth is just so much different out there. So people are struggling just to afford food. So anyways, I'll get off my rant there.
Let's do James, then Alexandra, then.
Yeah, I'll pick up the baton from you on affordability right there after I make a brief aside. You know how at an orbital launch facility, the control panel has a button that's labeled self-destruct? You can push that button and it'll blow the rocket up. What do they put over that button? They put a cover. There's a little like a box that sits on top of that button, so you can't press it. Tesla needs one of those covers over the mute button on their earnings call. I don't know where everybody thought I was going to go with that, but that's where I was going to go, is stop hitting the mute button by accident, Tesla. We want to hear the entire call, please. So that's
And
one of the
get better
things.
audio equipment.
Yeah.
And did you get it from the start? I have the feeling I missed the intro. Did you get the
Yeah.
intro?
No, we didn't get the intro. I
Okay,
think
so
I think what happened. I think the X stream had it the whole way, and the YouTube stream had cutouts. I think is what happened. I was looking at it in the background. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there was a muted section at the beginning of the call, and then there was one in the middle also. Right after Elon was talking about FSD version 12 and how they had defeated the local maxima with nothing but nets. But taking it back to the advertising versus affordability question, the point that I hear Elon keep making, he's made it a bunch of times, is that no matter how desirable your advertising makes your product, if people cannot afford it, then they cannot buy it. And I think the piece that's missing, that's a logical point and well stated, except for the fact that there are so many people purchasing inferior vehicles that cost them more, right? There's a lot of people out there who are plunking down perfectly good money to buy Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Lexus, Infiniti, Audi vehicles that are inarguably inferior to the Tesla comparable vehicle they could have purchased because they believe the FUD. They believe the misinformation. They believe the EV mistruths peddled by the fossil fuel industry. And it causes them to throw out. Emmett, did
This
you
just
draw
looks
a flowchart?
inappropriate.
Emmett,
This
that's
just looks
I'm supporting James's point. This is supporting James's point.
That's your flowchart. You'll have to read it.
It's my Venn diagram or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we can read the.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're trying to convey.
Walk us through it. Walk us through it.
Well, basically, on the left, these are people that can afford a $50,000 plus car. Okay. In the middle is everything Tesla can produce and is or is not selling. And so you see a slice of the people that can afford a $50,000 car are buying a Tesla, but just a small slice of them. And then this bigger chunk is all the people who cannot afford a $50,000 car or can barely afford a $50,000 car. And those people are also buying Teslas, the ones that can barely afford it. And in the middle is all the production capacity untapped because Tesla refuses to market to this other circle right here. Or no, over here. They refuse to market to this big white space here that James is talking about that are buying Mercedes-Benz and everything.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have to puzzle over that a little more to understand it, I think, Emmett. But
it's like a Venn diagram, but terribly a bad handwriting.
Yeah,
I just see testicles. I'm not gonna lie.
There is some education that I think would be beneficial for a lot of people who don't spend all of their time on X like we do.
Mm-hmm.
People who aren't following Elon's every move, people who don't follow Tesla news, people who aren't really that into electric vehicles. These are the folks who need to know that you can take an electric vehicle through a car wash, that you can drive an EV on a long trip, that EVs don't burn down if you park them in your garage, right? There's a long, long list of misinformation that people believe, not because they're credulous, not because they're dopes or dimwits, because because there's a lot of people out there who are propagating this misinformation due to their own ignorance or due to their own ill motives, right? So that's the opportunity vector for Tesla, is to advance education efforts into the larger market to say, hey, there's a better car you could be buying. It's a Tesla. Here's all the things that make it better. Look at the additional freedom this gives you. Look at the extra time this gives you back. Look at the cost savings. The list goes on and on. Look at the superior technology. Look at the upgradability for this vehicle, right? And help people make a better decision who can afford to buy a Tesla.
Yeah, if you talk to the Lyft drivers and the Uber drivers who drive a Model 3, it's so obvious because they tell you the most common thing is people say, "Oh, I thought Teslas are $100,000 cars. I didn't know you can get it for this much," or things like that. Like, I mean, just middle America who's not on X, who's not technologist people, baby boomers, like all these people assume Teslas are like the same price as the Model X or X when they first heard about Tesla 10 years ago, right? Like $100,000 car. They don't know that they've already gone down to like, a Model 3 could be in the $30,000 plus range, like they have no idea, a lot of people. And it's unfortunate that Elon kind of refuses to see that perspective. It's not a binary thing the way he's thinking of it. He thinks all people cannot afford a Tesla and that's why no one else is buying it at these price points until they lower prices. And that's not the case at all.
So
it's
can I show you some data that I think challenges that? Sure. Right there. So there was a study from PwC that Alexandra posted a couple of days ago. This was posted. It's a freaking 100. I don't even know how big it is, but I just
83
here's
pages.
83 pages, and here's a slide from the study. Okay, and this is where I completely understand the prospects of advertising, but I'm still like the thing that I'm stuck on is like, but are we confident that there are really that many people out there that like 95% of the bucket is just not going to buy a Tesla regardless at whatever price because they don't know of all the different variables? So let me explain to you what this study shows. Consumers have been grouped into three main clusters within three regions: EV owners, EV prospects, and EV skeptics. I don't know if you know that's spelled correctly. 1,200, 1,300 respondents, and it's separated by APAC, EMEA, and NA. So 5% of the 12,800 respondents, if you break it out by region, about 5% of the NA respondents are current EV owners. 54% are EV prospects, people who have declared their intention to buy an EV in the next 5 years, and then EV skeptics, which are 41%. Okay, so where I'm stuck with this discussion, with the advertising thing, like talking about, hey, how effective is this going to be short term to really get over that hump that Elon has as a fear? If only 5% of current buyers are EV buyers right now in the EV, and there is 10x more people looking to buy an EV in the next 5 years, which essentially means double the current buying public right now every year for the next 5 years, what is advertising going to do to these people who are already going to buy an EV?
I would say it's very tricky to like categorize people into these buckets, right? What are the exact questions that result in these buckets, for example, right? And how many people are being entirely truthful on every answer that puts them in one bucket or another when they're asked these questions? That's all kind of abstract analysis, in my opinion. There is no question that some form of educational campaign will improve demand. There's no question.
I don't disagree with that. I 100% agree with that.
Or 100%, we have no idea. Like they're doing like Google ad clicks, like rarely, occasionally. Tesla China is taking the charge, doing, because they're in charge of Asia, doing some stuff at airports and stuff. But in North America, there's not really hardly any advertising or marketing at all for Tesla other than the natural organic grassroots stuff. And I feel like we're at sort of like, we've sort of maxed that out to a degree, and Tesla's ready to grow faster. But I feel like if they just tested out like some commercials on like sporting events or something, then we can find out pretty quickly for 0.1% of their balance sheet. I mean, what if it's the best thing they ever did and we never knew because we never tried it,
Okay.
I think that's fair.
The debate is magnitude, right? So are you suggesting that if they did $200 million of advertising, that's enough to be able to capture, I don't know, some percentage of new sales, as opposed to what Elon is saying is that advertising will work and it'll probably increase it like you're suggesting, but there's a bigger problem right now. And the biggest problem is interest rates have risen so high that the monthly payments are so high that you're not going to get the big jump in market share that you're looking to get.
I get that argument. And even if interest rates keep going up, and let's say new car buyers go from 10 million in North and US a year to 9 million in the US next year because interest rates went up further. Well, Tesla, instead of having demand of 1% or 10% of that, maybe they'll have 20% of 9 million, which is much better than 10% of 10 million, So I think if they can do it, they'll drum up a lot more interest from people that have no idea. All the Lyft passengers and Uber passengers of the Lyft drivers we talked to, we have so much kind of evidence out there of people that just like everyday people that are not in our own little bubble that have no clue about EVs or Tesla in particular. They're just like clueless.
So with the advertisement argument, but the part that I struggle with is China is booming with EV adoption. Europe's booming with EV adoption. North America, we're lagging. Tell me there's infinite more advertising in Europe and Asia? I don't think so.
But there is more cars
Much more
produced,
in China.
more competitors on the market. So other people are doing ads. The consumer is more informed. The US consumer is very divided, like everything in the US, right? So is either pro EV or against EV, and I don't think any ad will just lift them over. It will be, a longer grind to get that done. But I think rather than discussing ads, yes or no, because we'll not get anywhere there, because obviously Elon has made his mind up to not ad. I'd like to sum up where I felt this whole call, brought us. And maybe I'm repeating stuff that I missed when I was not here yet. The good of this call was actually that it was quite structured. I felt the game of who speaks when between the new CFO and Elon worked smoother than in previous calls. It was clearly not an over optimistic call, right? I mean, you had a feeling you were going to a graveyard together, but the one thing that always strikes me with Elon, and I find this fascinating and doesn't alter in any way my own investment hypothesis, is how overly confident he is in the future, in Tesla having the best AI team, in Tesla solving real world AI like nobody else can, in Tesla throwing millions and billions into the pot to get there the quickest possible, and seeing the need for speed and seeing the need of how these investments have to work. And then you press the button of where we with Mexico, how many cars and whatever, and you have the feeling the guy turns around. There we go. Nick puts his mask on and gets overly pessimistic. Oh my God, I lived through 2008, the year end. It was so difficult. It was so difficult. I mean, I nearly went there and thought, okay, come on, cry on my shoulder, baby. It was, it is incredible how these two personas live in the same corpse and speak in the same half hour or something about it. I had the feeling that he really wanted to make clear we understand the production is not going to go for 100% capacity. They are managing production to demand and rather have a little bit under capacity than having too many cars on the market. And the comparison with the RAV4, and I've never bought a Toyota, whatever, but tonight one thing I'm going to do is actually study who is the RAV4 buyer, what are the prices. I know it's something between 30 and 34,000 for a new RAV4. That is now the focus. I would have never thought, right, that Tesla Model 3 and Model Y are having the RAV4 as a target. So it was not my best earnings call. Just like I said, I have these two personas that I have to live with. Did it alter in any way my investment theory? Not at all. I'm 100% in Tesla. I have my leaps are now 2025. I'm pleased. That's the one thing I did. I switched to 2024 to 2025, and just move on. It's a tough year. It's a tough year for anybody who wants to buy a house. It's a tough year for anybody who wants to buy a car that they can't afford. And I think he understands that. I actually love that we have one of the richest men on this planet, caring about affordability for the commoners, and not only because he wants to make more money out of them, but because he really is driven by his mission still. I love how passionate he is about AI. I just, that's the boat we're sitting in, and he's driving it.
Matt, go for it. What are your thoughts from the call?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of hit it already. The tone was the big thing. It's kind of funny. Like the stock was actually chugging along, like reasonably positive. When he's talking about, the AI team being best in class, and some of the even with some of the kind of caution he was throwing around Cybertruck, which was extremely prudent. Like the stock was just fine there, but then as he sort of meandered into just like this melancholic, sad Elon kind of territory, the stock just kind of went down with it because it was purely an emotional thing, which I certainly understand where he's coming from on a lot of that stuff. But I guess my view is it's not as bad as he's making it out to be. And to Elon's credit, he did say that there's a possibility I'm kind of overreacting to some of this stuff, but if you just kind of scrape the emotionality off of the earnings call, I thought it was actually reasonably fine. I mean, the Cybertruck ramp, he was very kind of cautious about that. But when you like actually listen to what he's saying, it's like, okay, 18 months to get to full capacity and cash flow positive. It's like, that's not any different than any one of us would have projected if we were kind of doing this analysis. And so I think he's kind of living through how hard it's going to be. And I think the one area of real concern is what we were talking about before the call, which is, they're not going pedal to the metal on capacity expansion right now. For the first time basically ever, they're trying to just optimize what they've got instead of really expanding or very rapidly. And I mean, reading between the lines on Giga Mexico, like that sounds like that's like 2025, 2026 kind of time frame before we could be expecting any units out of there. When they're basically saying, oh yeah, we're still in like the engineering phase on that. So, I think it's frankly prudent for the company to be, a little bit more cautious right now. I mean, Emmett and others, I think, would probably argue that there's more they could be doing to better optimize their existing business. But when you kind of, without beating that old argument into the ground one more time, I think it was actually reasonably kind of neutral in what we kind of would have expected, and when you take the emotions out of it.
Let me add on that. I think that the story now makes sense after you saw the financials, right? So they increase cash, right? So he's making sure that I've got cash. But he had to take the pedal off the metal for Giga Mexico and the factories that's going to really burn cash. But they invested heavily in AI and robotaxi, and so it's actually good. I'm actually, now that I think about it, okay, it's this bet between, are we still going to hit the 50% CAGR? They still guided to that, but now we're wondering, can they do that? And they said, well, we can still expand our current factories. And so at the end of the day, I'm actually happy, right? Because they bolstered their cash, in order to weather a potential downturn that might happen. He's still very concerned about that. But hey, he's investing in the things that matter. So I think the bets might still take off. The bots, the robotaxi. He spoke very highly of both of those. He didn't really spend as much time on the bot that we hoped that he did, but he didn't. And so maybe he was waiting for some sort of next drop that they're going to show you the progress of the bot, as opposed to using this call for that. But it kind of makes sense why, at least they're caching making sure that they don't get too into the factories, too many factories being built too fast.
Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to kind of double tap what Herbert said, and then it kind of ties back into Alexandra, the two different like sides of Elon you're referring to. I think when you think of a new factory, there's a lot of cost that goes into that. And even if that factory gets built and you have all this overproduction of vehicles, well, now you become like all these other companies with their dealer lots. Whereas investing into Dojo, these NVIDIA clusters, AI, you don't have that same issue. If anything, that propels you towards a world where we have software margins that there isn't going to be buildup of inventory or anything of that nature. So that's how I see those two. Like I don't see those actually in conflict with each other. I see that as that's a more prudent way of spending cash right now, going towards that direction. Not saying anyone has to agree with me, but that's how I see it.
Yeah. What I think what's interesting now is with this whole dynamic of trying to position to the company to survive tough economic times that may or may not be might be too aggressive based on what Elon is describing. I think the interesting dynamic is when you put it against the rest of the EV auto markets, specifically around legacy automaker competition, you're not going to enter a phase where the company and Tesla is going to try to squeeze out every bit of cost out of the system without worrying too much about growth, while the rest of the automakers are delaying their EV programs because of cost, right? So they're going to squeeze more cars out of the factories, lower the costs, and then you have companies like GM delaying their Silverado EV because they, again, deploying the cash. You got Ford dealing with a Mach-E recall because they have issues with the batteries. Then you have players like Kia and Hyundai actually doing a really good job from the legacy front and trying to put out cheaper cars that's going to put out put on pressure on the rest of the competition. So I think the question really is not really a TAM question for me for this stuff anymore. Like it never was, but it really won't be for the foreseeable future, because the amount of people that are going to want a car and the amount of people that are going to be able to get a car is going to that it's going to be a huge gulf. Like, there's those graphs talking about the valley of death that's coming up in the next few years, because as you have total production of vehicles shifting to EVs, there's going to be lack of expertise from existing automakers to replace their gas cars with electric cars. We're seeing that real time, y'all. And that's what's crazy about this, is if you're really paying attention, you can see that existing car manufacturers are heavily struggling to transition to EVs. The total number of EVs on the road are still pale in comparison to the gas cars, and the costs are nowhere near where they need to be for us to match the total number of cars being purchased being EV versus the gas cars. So I think it's, from a strategy perspective, it's obvious that Tesla understands that dynamic and they're going down it. It's just the concerning thing short term is that we're getting verbiage around a lot of macroeconomic forces that is going to make it difficult for Tesla to navigate through, although they'll be fine. But from where I sit, yeah, people are hurting, but you don't really see that covered anywhere. No one is saying, hey, the ship is sinking. The ship is sinking. We're just saying, Jerome Powell raised the interest rates 0.25%. I guess we're fine. I guess that signals strong economy. Whereas Elon's saying, nope, not strong economy. Something's coming. And that's what I'm getting out of the call. So it's more like a concern around macro more than concern about the company. So,
someone on X said it sounds like Elon hooked back up with Amber Heard, just given his mental state.
Good. I need to reconnect my Bluetooth. It's like super crackly. Who has any thoughts that? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick that the 18-month ramp that he referred to of Cybertruck does correlate pretty nicely with Jordan has been tracking the growth of the Cyber cell production ramp, and it's right now running at about 21% per month compound annual growth in production of those Cyber cells. And so it's looking like if you assume roughly 150 kilowatt hour pack in the Cybertruck, and they consume the vast majority of that 4680 ramp, that would put them delivering right at that 250,000 vehicles a year in February to March of 2025. And obviously think that Cybertruck manufacturing will lag the cell manufacturing a little bit, and so that puts you into maybe Q2 of 2025. And so yeah, I think that those numbers actually line up pretty well, and I think that that's also a good thing to level set expectations for people of any other vehicles or platforms using 4680 cells anytime in the near future. That it should primarily, I think that 4680s are pretty much going to go solely to Cybertruck for, at least the next year, maybe 2 years.
There was an interesting comment that Drew had made that they had swapped over now to fully using 4680 batteries for the Cybertruck. Like they just swapped over to producing those, which to me, like I was under the impression with all the stuff we were seeing that there's no more Model Ys being built with 4680s, but that seemed to contradict that. So
I don't think it does. My read on that was that the model, they discontinued the Model Y, and that something about the Cybercell is apparently incompatible with the 4680 pack that they were making for Model Y, and now all the new base range Model Ys are made with LFP packs. So we're not going to see any more 4680 Model Ys out of Texas.
I have to get going in a minute, but I just wanted to say one more thing to end on an optimistic note of mine. Even though as much as I want to beat the public education campaign into the ground again, I would like to say optimistically, I don't think Elon's going to change his mind on that anytime soon, unfortunately. And I wish he did a year ago, but it never happened. But on the positive, optimistic side, I think once you get 50 to 100,000 of these Cybertrucks on the road next year, all over the place, people will be seeing these crazy looking machines. It's going to spur a ton of curiosity in people again that originally thought they knew Tesla. They'll Google it or they'll ask more friends about it and they'll learn, oh, they also have a $35,000 car. Wow, let me look into that. So I do think there's going to be a large amount of that network effect, from just the sensational look of the Cybertruck driving around. So that I think will hopefully bring demand back in line with the production growth plans Tesla wants to implement despite higher interest rates. So
for sure. Yeah, I think for those that are following the story closely, this is the type of earnings call I think that's gonna set a challenging mood out in the markets regarding the name, I think, for the until the next quarter comes out or until Cybertruck delivery event. So, not investment advice, not financial advice, but if
I agree with you.
You're going to be reading a lot of negative stuff.
Yeah. The next 6 weeks will be few good news, lots of bashing of what we just heard and rebashing of it. I'm actually a bit surprised and disappointed that this Cybertruck event seems to be small in size. I mean, I know they've done that for previous product releases, but at the same time, Elon says this is our best product yet. So, I really would have wished this was going to be something really, big and exciting. Well, maybe I'm wrong and it will be big and exciting. But then the other thing I've learned with the market, moods change. And today's mood is this, and there will be better moods. There will be better moods because of the Fed. There will be better moods because wars end. There will be better moods because, there's so many other things to it than just an earnings call. And Q4 may still be struggling. I mean, you did hear them discuss that the ramp after these factory closings is still going on and they're still not where they want to be. So I just don't want anybody to hype Q4 at the moment. Just, take it prudent, and then we're up for better times 2024.
Cybertruck on November 30th, though. That's exciting.
That's really
Finally.
exciting.
Are you going? Who's going? Who's going?
Well, Matt, myself, Nick, and seems like Herbert's going to join us too. We're going to do a hot wing competition during the Cybertruck event. Matt thinks before, so we don't have issues at the event if we go. Where we're going to sort of answer questions and eat hot wings for each question, and then by the 10th one, it gets hotter and hotter. So it's going to be a nice little thing we're going to do. So hopefully Matt makes it down, and then we'll do it, and we'll have Nick and Herbert online as well. So it's going to be exciting.
Does everybody here have invites to the Cybertruck event? I don't.
I tried to pimp myself out on Twitter asking for a day. I thought, somebody would like a blonde as a +1 to accompany them. But,
Who's blonde? Who is blonde here?
What's left?
That's red, my dude. That's red.
That's amazing.
No luck yet.
Somebody who wants a nice redhead as a date, please send a message out to Matcha SM Matt, whatever the hell your ex freaking handle is.
Doing business
Rebellion-
as Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's matcha S&M. That's what I figured.
And yeah, so any closing thoughts before we wrap this sucker up? Should we go around the horn? We'll go James and then go around and see what are some closing thoughts there.
Advertise.
Hans.
Optimus.
Herbert. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts would be, I think FSD and Optimus, and I think that we have to, hope that these things will land, because it looks like that volume is going to be, it's going to be just fine, but not going to be as big as we wanted.
I think the fact that we have an automaker that's focusing on lower costs for the consumer is a great thing, and it's rare in this market. And I'm glad that it's Tesla, which could usher in the next generation of buyer much quicker than most thought, because one of the biggest misconceptions with EVs is that they're too expensive. And when you have a player that's going to make it so stupidly ridiculous, like it's going to make it so difficult to say no to the product, I think that's the best kind of long-term success you can have as a company, regardless of how much you advertise. All right, Nico.
FSD12 baby AGI.
Emmett?
You're muted,
Can't hear
Emmett.
you.
You're muted, bro. Come on.
We see
Stop
your
showing
testicles,
us
but we can't hear you.
I'm just gonna mimic James. Advertise.
Somebody clip that and make that into a meme. There it is.
It does look irrationally dirty for some reason.
Or is that going to have the last
James?
word once James is done, or Alexandra? done?
Yeah, once we finish out, I'll give you the last word. James, then Alexander, then Matt.
What
Oh,
am I
you went.
doing?
You went already.
Yeah,
You
I already
went.
had my turn. I can't go
Wait,
twice.
what did I do?
There's no
Was
double
it-
dipping here. You can't double count in
sorry.
accounting.
Well,
Wait, is
what
it
does your hair
Alexander
think?
next?
It is. And my word is affordability, baby.
Matt?
Yeah, I don't know how this turned into a just one word phrase, but the thing that stuck out to me is, Elon reiterated his vision that Tesla would be the most valuable company in the world. That still seems very much intact. It might be a bumpy way. It almost certainly will be a bumpy way on the way there. And I think, all of us have been surprised by some of the bumps along the road. But I think when you're focusing on the long term, the story is, I think, just as intact as ever. So there will be a point where we're past all these kind of current issues, and what does the world look like, and whether that's in 2026 or 2030. I mean, if you just extrapolate forward, all the path of all these different companies are on. I mean, I don't know how Tesla isn't, assuming there's no like crazy AI startup that solves the world and is like a $10 trillion company. I don't know how Tesla isn't like in the multi-trillion-dollar market cap company in the long term.
By the
Hear,
way,
hear.
let me please add one thing. The fact that he's running with all his money into AI, but is prudent on cars, actually shows that there is no competitor on cars with those profit margins. While on AI, he wants to make sure they're the first ones.
Great point.
100%.
Okay. So just a couple of things for me, please. I think we need to have a show between Alexandra and me against these rebellionaires who believe in advertising, because it's really about affordability
Fake
versus advertising.
fake
And
lions,
we're just gonna
fake
we're gonna
lion.
take them down. We'll take them down. But if I can, as far as that, I'm about to. When you close this down, I'm going to create a new StreamYard link, and I'm going to do live. Anybody here can join me, but Jeff Lutz and Brian White is going to join me. So please join that live stream, which I'll launch in about a couple minutes here. Thanks, everybody.
Well done. I'm impressed.
Thank you, Farzad.
All right.
Love all
Thank you,
guys.
everybody. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
mods. Thank you, everybody watching. Mwah. Love you guys.
That was Chamath. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi guys,
Bye-bye.
I miss you. Don't forget about Zach.
Oh, there he goes. Bye, Zach. Take care. The
You should have
family.
been on the call, bro. We miss you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
How's the family doing? Bye-bye.
Love you guys. Bye.